on, guys? The NBA season winding down. This is actually going to be the final NBA Locks Before Locks show that we do of the regular season, at least as of now, with baseball season starting next week. So we're going to be moving around the schedule a little bit to where we're going to have the NBA Live Before Lock, preceded by NBA Deeper Dive, and then MLB Live Before Lock before then, trying to make sure we get in our content for all of the different sports. Do us favors, you come and like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Matt, some of these slates have been pretty wild as far as it comes to prop betting and just looking at teams as a whole. Really long injury reports. How are you feeling about today?
Really long injury reports. And I guess we're going to have the Lakers at their supposed playoff full strength. Maybe we'll see a different version of them. I'm not so sure. As you said, 10-game slate, a lot to dig into. And yeah, some teams not playing for the playoffs aren't playing a whole lot of people I've ever really heard of.
Yeah, and if you guys want access to even more betting information, we do have our premium bets Discord channel. You guys could sign up for that using the link below. We keep all of our bets tracked so you know what our record is, and we know it pays for itself, $25 a week. And just based on the ROI we've had so far, it's something that if you sign up, once again, the bets win over time, so it does pay for itself. Now let's talk about some of the things that we are liking for today's slate individually. So go pull up OddsShopper. They do sponsor this show for us. Free tool to use to identify all the best prop bets that are available at any sports book out there. And start with the Toronto Raptors at the Orlando Magic. And the Toronto Raptors, they are playing to try to avoid the play-in game. The Orlando Magic, they are playing to get a better draft pick and not win basketball games, I guess, right now. Not a whole lot to love from at least the Orlando Magic in terms of motivational purposes. But as we're looking at this game from a prop betting angle, what is it that stands out to you?
So looking at props specifically, the Gary Trent steals prop is one that piqued my interest. Over 1.5 steals. As of about an hour ago, it was the highest expected ROI steals prop on OddsShopper today at plus money, plus 140, which implies about a 42% implied probability. He's hit the over on this prop line 54% of the time in the last month in 35 minutes of play. We've got him at just 34 minutes of play and still hitting the over against an Orlando team who's 28th in net rating, an expected win rate of 52%, XROI north of 20%. I think I might be crazy here, but according to the Awesemo sports betting model, Orlando against the spread is not actually insane here. An expected win rate of 57%. I'm not sure I'm going to do it, but it is the second best point spread bet we have on OddsShopper for this 10-gamer.
So we have something kind of interesting with some of the Toronto players, which is I do think we're seeing inflated prop numbers from bench players anticipating a potential blowout. So one that stands out is Chris Boucher. And I think it makes sense to do a same game parlay and take the unders on Chris Boucher props. Individually, they're numbers that we both like over on OddsShopper. Under 6.5 rebounds, we have that with a 74% win rate. Under 9.5 points, we have that winning 68% of the time. But here's the situation. If the Raptors win via blowout, Boucher's probably going to get garbage time run. And considering it's a double-digit spread, there's somewhat of a likeliness that happens. Although, like you said, if you do prefer the Orlando side of the spread, which is not crazy. And it's not like blowouts are that predictable in the NBA. I think it makes sense to try to parlay these two unders together. So if we look at the recent minutes for Boucher in competitive games, he's just not playing very much. And I have him projected for 14 minutes today. It's hard to expect somebody to score over 9.5 points and over 6.5 rebounds in those kind of minutes. He played 22 last game. Once again, though, blowout. He was still over on what his points number would have been for today's slate. He scored 6. The game before that, a competitive game, he played 14.5. So I think we're seeing really inflated numbers on Boucher because he got extended minutes last game, but it was due to blowout. I don't think blowouts are all that predictable. So give me an under on a same game parlay, Chris Boucher's points and rebounds. I think that's a good way to find some upside that also correlates. Let's move on to the next game, Dallas Mavericks, Washington Wizards. We have, oh, by the way, news on the Orlando Magic that just came through. Devin Kennedy is available to make his Magic season debut today. This is the port of the season we're at now. Random guys. Tell any of these guys that signed 10-day contracts that are going to be available, couldn't tell you if it's an April Fool's Day joke or not. No way to know. Impossible. Next game, Dallas Mavericks, Washington Wizards, another game. The Wizards aren't necessarily tanking, but at the same time, they haven't been any good this year, especially ever since Bradley Beal got hurt. And then on the Dallas side, it is a team that is jockeying for playoff positioning. If I'm not mistaken, they have the upside, I think, to finish as the 3 seed. They can finish as low as the 6 seed in the West. So Dallas certainly motivated to continue winning games. What are you liking in this one?
Yeah, I view it the same way. Dallas has a ton more to play for at the moment here, and I think there's some variability in playing time we could see for some of the front court in Washington. Porzingis under 8.5 rebounds is one that really interests me. In the last month, he's been under in about half his games here, 46%, averaging under this 8.5 line in the last month in about 27 minutes of play. Dallas is above average in defensive rating and top 10 in the league in net rating over their last 10 games, and we've got Porzingis at just about the same minutes played as he's had over the last 10, about 27 and a half minutes as a median projection. We're still not seeing him get anywhere close to this prop line. 7.7 rebounds is our median projection, an expected win rate of 64% on this. There are also some 3+ money bets with an expected ROI over 20%. I just want to highlight, sorry, I just lost my spot. Kispert over 0.5 blocks, Bullock over 0.5 blocks, and Dwight Powell over 0.5 3-pointers made. Blocks and 3-pointers, we've seen some pretty good values there in our prop bet model. So I really like those if you're trying to add some plus odds bets to your single game parlays.
So I understand the last couple of games at Satoransky, 13 assists, 10 assists in those games. This 6.5 number, though, still seems fairly high for me for Satoransky. These assist numbers are crazy, especially because he isn't even playing that many minutes. Last game, 27 minutes against Orlando, 13 assists. Like I said, the game before, 25.5 against Chicago, puts up 10 assists. As a result, we get a 6.5 assist prop here for Satoransky. The Mavericks are a sneaky good defense. I think a lot of people just think of Dallas and they go, like, oh, Luka, offense. Dallas plays at the slowest pace in the NBA. They also have one of the better defensive efficiencies in the league. This is not an easy matchup. I think those assist numbers should regress for Satoransky going forward. This is probably the matchup for it to happen. So give me under 6.5 assists for Satoransky. That's just a really high number, especially for a guy who, 2 weeks ago, he wasn't even in the rotation. All right, now let's move on to the next one. And now we're starting to get to a spot where I think we probably do have to weigh the blowout risk a little bit more because now we're getting to some real significant point spreads. The Boston Celtics are at home against the Indiana Pacers. The Celtics are favored by 15 points. Massive, massive spread here. Does that impact how you look at this game at all?
100%, especially when you have diverging needs in terms of playing time, in terms of what teams want to do at this point in the season. We have some variability in playing time projections, and so much of our statistical projections in the NBA are based on minutes played projections. So when you have variability there, then you obviously have more variability, more uncertainty when it comes to these stats projections. A couple of Marcus Smart unders are popping in our tools today, but my personal favorite is Al Horford over 8.5 rebounds. He's at the over in just 33% of his games over the last month, but the production for Horford has already started to shift since that Williams injury. In all of March prior to his past 3 games, he was at over 10 points, 7.5 rebounds, 2.5 assists in 31 minutes. Now in the last 3 games, he's up at 33 minutes a game, less points scored, but more rebounds and 2 more assists per game. He's being more of a facilitator. This matchup against Indiana, obviously a good one, and we got him projected for a pretty conservative 29 minutes. If you believe 33 minutes is closer to the reality, which I do, I think this is a smash over an expected win rate of 66% at plus money. Last I saw it, plus 105. It's a really solid bet.
This one's going to be a stay away for me. The spread's just so large, and I think this is probably a spot too where if Boston gets out to a pretty big lead, maybe they can limit the minutes of all their starters to sub 30. And then also you consider some of the injury situations they dealt with down the stretch of the year. And I do think this plays a psychological factor on a team like the Boston Celtics that have been surging in the second half of the season. Robert Williams, who's one of the more valuable defensive players in the league, he's out for the rest of the regular season, going to miss the start of the playoffs. I just don't think they're going to want to play with fire if they're up double digits late in the game against Indiana. So I'll just avoid this one. Big spread. We've got 10 games to choose from. And I think easy enough to just look elsewhere to find value. One of the spots where I think we could be able to find is this next game, the Sacramento Kings against the Houston Rockets. A lot of players on the injury report for this game. Sacramento tanking, De'Aaron Fox, Domantas Sabonis, done for the year. On the Houston side of the game, some uncertainty as well. We've got Eric Gordon not expected to play the rest of the season. Dennis Schroeder not expected to play the rest of the season. Neither is Christian Wood. And then at least for our purposes, Şengün is questionable, and that also has a massive impact on the Houston Rockets. This is a game that's expected to be really high scoring, one of the higher totals on the slate. How are you sifting through all of the players that are not going to be playing today, or somebody like Şengün who's questionable?
Yeah, this one's kind of tough. And honestly, I want to just trust the value here. And there are some players who we certainly have certainty of playing time for this player, but the under for Davion Mitchell's points has been one that's been popping in our models pretty much all week long, under 23.5 points. I know he's been playing really well of late, but it is the second highest expected ROI bet in the points category right now. 35.5 minutes per game over the last month for Mitchell, but he's still gone under this prop line in 67%, 2/3 of his game in the last month. Sure, he's had 20 plus points in 5 straight games. In terms of fantasy points per minute, he's at 1.05, pretty darn good. We're still pretty high on him at 1 fantasy point per minute in terms of our projection against the Houston defense. That's certainly below average, but still, even with a ton of projected playing time, this is an expected win rate bet of 70%, XROI north of 25% as well.
Yeah, the projection certainly looks good on the under there. I'm going to look at just some of his numbers this year with Fox and Sabonis off the court and see what they look like. 22.5% usage rate. That's not really that massive relative to the points total we need here. Let's see. Per 36 minutes, we're getting how many points out of Davion Mitchell? So now I'm looking at the whole season. All right. So the entire season, when you're taking Don with Davion Mitchell, no Domantas Sabonis, no De'Aaron Fox on the court, 22.5% usage rate, 16.25 points per 36 minutes. He's playing really well lately, to your point. And I think it's reasonable to expect the rookies are going to improve as the season goes on. But I think the fair line here is probably a little bit closer to like 19.5 points than it is at 22.5. So I'm going to lean towards the under here as well. I have it projected to be a little bit under. Our numbers like the under. So just a vote of confidence there, especially looking at those on-off court numbers. It seems like the numbers are a little bit inflated. Next game here, another team rest. Almost all these games, we're just dealing with absurd amount of rest. Phoenix Suns against the Memphis Grizzlies. If you guys were watching live before lock yesterday, a little bit before the show, Memphis ruled out basically everybody for rest today. And for whatever reason, DK took forever to update the line on this game, where other books had it pulled fairly quickly. DK left the lineup for a good hour or so. Memphis Grizzlies, Steven Adams, Jaren Jackson Jr., Desmond Bane, Tyus Jones, Ja Morant, Killian Tilly, none of them are expected to play today. This leaves us with a pretty thin Memphis Grizzlies roster. And I guess their best players are like DeAnthony Melton, Dylan Brooks, Brandon Clark, and Kyle Anderson for tonight. It's not very appealing looking, especially when they're going up against a powerhouse team in the Phoenix Suns. Now, I know that for the year, the Grizzlies have been really good in games that Ja Morant has missed. Totally different scenario for me with all of these guys out. What are you going to be doing with such a shorthanded Memphis team in this game?
Yeah, and honestly, it's just this weird in-between scenario they find themselves in. They find themselves in a great seeding position, but with so little time left in the season, they really are kind of locked in to that number 2 spot. So they have some interesting game theory things as they get ready for the playoffs to do. I'm actually looking at some overs on the Phoenix side. Devin Booker over 4.5 assists. And if you want over 4.5 rebounds, that looks pretty good as well. Over the last month, Booker's averaging, I know there's been a big shift because CP3 is back, but he's still averaging 30 points, over 4 rebounds, nearly 4.5, and 6 assists. That's why I really like this one. We've got him projected for the same amount of minutes played as he typically has over the last month, just about 34.5 minutes. So why move off my base rates if there's so many injury absences for Memphis? I know they've been number 1 in defensive rating over the last 10, number 1 in net rating, but this isn't the same Memphis team that the one we expect going into the playoffs. So these Devin Booker overs look really interesting to me. In terms of spread or money line, the Awesemo sports betting model kind of sees Vegas as right on in this one as of now. I'm excited. I kind of hope we get to see this one later this spring, but this is not some sort of preview of a possible playoff matchup.
Yeah, I am looking at Dylan Brooks for under 0.5 blocks. There's so many guys out for Memphis, and I get that Brooks is playing. How many minutes is he going to play? Is he even going to start? Most likely, but is he going to go play 36 minutes? I'm not so sure about that. This is a game that Memphis has shown that they're really prioritizing to get rest. At least that seems what the case is. And Dylan Brooks, he played 32 minutes last game, so it does seem like we're getting a full minutes allotment out of him. But for the season, it's not like we're looking at some prolific shot blocker. Dylan Brooks is only averaging 0.2 blocks per game. So when you got that number of 0.5, I know it's juiced a little bit towards the under. I just don't think he's all that likely to block a shot. He's done it in, let's see. He's got block shots in 4 games for the entire season. Not very many blocks right there. Give me the under 0.5 blocks for Dylan Brooks. And hopefully Memphis ends up being pretty cautious with the playing time for their starters today, considering that they're resting most of their core guys already. Next game, guess what this is going to be, Matt?
Oh boy, it's
Rest.
Clippers, Milwaukee. Yeah,
Rest. Clippers, Milwaukee. In this one, we have both teams sitting everybody. And when you look at what happened last game, last night, both these teams played in overtime. Milwaukee played against the Nets, one of the better regular season games of the year. Milwaukee ends up winning in overtime. No surprise to the rest guys today. Clippers blew I don't even know how they blew that lead against the Chicago Bulls last night, but they did. Game goes to overtime. Bulls end up winning in OT as a result. Just everybody out that matters for the most part on both sides of this game. Another really tricky one, just reading off the injury reports here, starting with the Los Angeles Clippers. Paul George, Nick Batum, Brandon Boston, Norman Powell, Marcus Morris, Reggie Jackson, all of them are out today for the Clippers. For the Milwaukee Bucks, Giannis, Drew Holiday, Brook Lopez, Chris Middleton, they are all going to sit. I'm kind of surprised Bobby Portis doesn't have more inflated numbers here. I think Bobby Portis overs look pretty good. Assuming he starts, I mean, all of the usage in the world is available to him. So I'm looking at Bobby Portis for over points. That's one of my more confident plays on the slate, assuming he starts. Do you agree with that? Or are you looking elsewhere?
I actually agree with you completely. In fact, this is even since I was starting to take notes for this show in preparation here, Bobby Portis under 2.5 assists has skyrocketed to the highest expected value assist bet. I'm not really sure I'm into that. I was going to make a joke here that, they're going to pass on this game for load management, maybe with a 10-game slate, maybe we should just move on. But it's funny, when we have so many injury absences, sometimes we really do get values here. This is one instance I'm not sure I'm agreeing with the Awesemo projections in points or with assists for Bobby Portis.
Yeah, so Portis, the over, it's 17.5 points. I'm assuming he starts and plays a full allotment of minutes. I have him projected for about 23 points today. So I feel pretty good about the over there. Is there anything else you have your eye on, maybe from the Clippers side? The Clippers minutes, I think, are a lot trickier to figure out even than the Milwaukee ones.
There are some Grayson Allen bets that look okay. Under 3.5 assists at -170. We have an expected win rate of 75% on that with an XRI still north of 20%. I'm actually surprised to see the Clippers money line here being a decent expected value in terms of money line bets. So, as many of you know, if you've been watching this show, our our money line bets aren't quite in terms of value as strong as our individual stat bets, but hey, not as crazy here as I would think. Over 13.5 for Grayson Allen, I could do as well, but nothing really stands out.
All right, let's set up another shitty NBA game here, Matt. Detroit Pistons on the road against the Oklahoma City Thunder. These teams want nothing to do with winning, although since the Pistons are at least playing, like Sadiq Bey, Isaiah Stewart, Cade Cunningham, you have to think they should be more likely to win this one. But Marvin Bagley, Corey Joseph, Kelly Olynyk, they are all out tonight for Detroit. On the OKC side of the game, I mean, we've only got so much time left, but I guess I should read off the entire injury report. Kenrich Williams, Ty Jerome, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Mike Muscala, Derek Favors, Trey Mann, Josh Giddey, Lou Dort, Darius Baisley. All of them are going to be sitting today. Look, Trey Mann's the only one of those names that has not yet been ruled out for the season. So we're just looking at total skeleton rosters of teams that were not good to begin with. Is there anything that you could find that you like betting on in this crap show of a game?
I do want to just give a shout out to how well Detroit looked down the stretch against Philadelphia, a team that did want to win yesterday. And Cade Cunningham, Eric and I were talking about on Locks Before Lock yesterday. We were saying how basically all the little things that needed to happen that Cade Cunningham could possibly win Rookie of the Year are starting to happen. I don't actually think it's going to happen. I think Mobley is still a pretty solid lock to get it. But if he keeps playing like this, where over his last 6 games, 24 points, over 3 rebounds, nearly 7.5 assists in 35 minutes, 4 games with 22+ points, 3 with 25. You might have to give it to him with that recency bias. OKC against the spread in our model doesn't actually look that crazy. A little bit of a hangover performance maybe for Detroit. Again, I don't even know who's playing for OKC, but the expected spread here is actually Oklahoma City -1 according to the Awesemo sports betting model. I think it's a little aggressive, but you're also seeing the money line bet at +170. I like the spread better, +5. I'm seeing an expected win rate of 59%, XRY of nearly 15%. OKC is not good on defense, bottom 5, bottom 7 in net rating. This could get ugly, but I don't think that's a terrible bet.
Yeah, it's by the way, I think OKC, this might have changed, but at least a couple days ago, they had the second best record in the league against the spreads. They have been a little bit undervalued as much as they have lacked talent for a lot of the year. A lot of the players have overachieved, and I think they have a promising future. One guy that does stand out to me for today, Isaiah Roby for over 15.5 points. He's playing a lot of minutes as of late and also soaking up a pretty good amount of usage last couple of games. For instance, 14 points last game. That was a blowout, so we didn't get to play as much down the stretch of the game. Game before that, though, played 38 minutes against Portland, put up 30 real-life points. Usage rate in those last two games, 23 and 21%. So taking a little bit more shots than average, and also just considering how many players are out for OKC. The big one now being Trey Mann, being the guy most recently added to the injury report. I'm going to try to take advantage of the usage available. Give me the over on points for Isaiah Roby. Next game, Portland Trailblazers, San Antonio Spurs. Spurs 15.5 point favorites. With a Spurs win today against Portland and a Lakers loss against the Pelicans, the Spurs would really get a strong hold of that final play-in spot in the Western Conference and could really doom the Lakers considering their schedule down the stretch of the season. So Spurs certainly motivated to win. Portland, not so much. The reason the spread is so wide for that game. If you look at Portland, I think probably the most fun exercise is trying to figure out who the best player is on their active roster, because maybe it's Drew Eubanks who's playing on a 10-day contract. Maybe it's CJ Ellaby. Who knows? But right now they're running out Reggie Perry on a 10-day contract, Drew Eubanks on a 10-day contract, Chris Dunn on a 10-day contract just to fill out the roster. This is nothing but replacement level players. How are you going to approach this game?
Yeah, so it's insane how different our perception of these teams are. One is 31 and 45. Probably going to play in the play-in game, and one is 27 and 49, just 4 games different, and we're talking about them as if they are one of the worst teams in the league. Obviously, current personnel really matters. You just laid that out perfectly. I still think I want to go with DeJounte Murray under 9.5 assists, though. I think the line is just too high, despite us having a median projection of over 9.0 assists for Murray today. It's at plus money. Plus 115 last I saw it. That's an implied probability of about 47%. We have an expected win rate well north of 50%, about 54% last I saw it. An XRY of 14. In fantasy points per minute, Murray has been pretty unstoppable. I don't mind playing him in fantasy at all. 1.48 fantasy points per minute, and that's where we got him basically in terms of our projections, 1.55. But this assist line is just too much. I'm going to go under here and probably hedge it a little bit by playing him in DFS.
I want nothing to do with this game. It's the Blazers, this team they throw out here is so terrible that probably the worst collection of players we've ever seen in NBA history for an extended period of time. I was running through this with Loughy the other day when we were doing a show together, that this team is far worse than the Philadelphia 76ers team that won 10 games a few years ago during the process years. So I think there's a pretty good chance this game is going to be one-sided. I don't know how it's going to be handled. I try not to put too much stake into blowout risk when it comes to DFS. But when it comes to prop betting, we're just trying to find, which numbers look good, which numbers look bad in terms of lines that are posted, over-unders where we're trying to hit on. I just want to reduce as much variance as possible. And I just don't think that is conducive by attacking games with like 15.5 point spreads. Good chance for blowout, good chance minutes get limited. Moving on to the next one, 2 of my favorite players in the league, Denver Nuggets at home against the Minnesota Timberwolves. We got Jokic going up against Karl-Anthony Towns. I know this is one that I'm going to be very interested in. As per usual, I'm going to be playing a lot of Jokic in DFS today. Who are you going to be betting on for props, though, Matt?
So a couple of overs for some Timberwolves here. One thing that really surprised me as I started to dig in today is that Denver just in a 10-game stretch. So not a huge span of games, but not incredibly small. In their last 10 games, they're 26th in the league in defensive rating and 17th in net rating. They have some things to clean up as they head down the stretch here. D'Angelo Russell over 16.5 points is one that's popping in our model. Not sure that is my favorite. He's hit the over on this prop line in just 21% of his starts in the last month. The one I was really looking at is the points over for Anthony Edwards. It's at 20.5, an expected win rate of 62% at minus 110, basically a coin flip in implied probability. This still has an expected ROI of nearly 20%. He's at the over in about half of his games. And most importantly, we've got him projected for about 38 minutes of playing time in this expected exciting game here. I expect Denver to win, but ultimately, I think Minnesota has been playing better if you just look at a 10-game stretch. I think they keep it close, and if these two players go over, they do a big part in keeping this game close.
All right, one game left, so let's move on to that because I want to wrap this up. Guys, don't go anywhere. Like this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We got the deeper dive coming up next, and then it's going to be live before lock. That'll be Eric and I to close out the night. Final one, New Orleans Pelicans against the Los Angeles Lakers. The Lakers have officially listed both LeBron James and Anthony Davis as questionable. I assume they play because if they don't, the Lakers' playoff hopes are basically dashed. So I think that we could assume they are going to play. Are you on the same page? And what are you going to be looking at to bet on here?
100%. I would be absolutely shocked if James and Davis aren't suited up and starting and playing their normal minutes. I think they're in full playoff mode from here on out. They're going to try their best. We'll see what they look like. If they can actually coalesce into a team, that's to be decided still. The under here is looking really interesting to me. If you can still get 230.5, the expected spread here, or excuse me, expected total according to the Awesemo sports betting models at 224.5. The under hits 59% of the time. So even at minus 110, this looks like a really strong value. If you want a prop from me as well, CJ McCollum over 5.5 assists has a 60% expected win rate and an expected ROI of about 30%. I could absolutely see it. He's averaging 6.6 assists per game over the last month, and we've got him right there today, 6.2.
That is going to do it for us. Once again, guys, do us a big favor. Like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'll be back in about an hour and a half to see you guys on live before lock. Check you guys out later. Good luck.
Hey, quit checking out the goods. My name is Alex Baker. I'm as smooth as butter, and I'm looking to spread the love. I'm looking for a girl to be my bread. Because, I mean, you don't just eat butter by itself, do you? That's just weird. I'm a huge fan of reality TV shows like Flavor of Love, I Love New York, Rock of Love, Shot at Love. That's why I'm making my own show called Baker's Dozen, where I'm the star.
Hello, thank you for watching. I'm Michael Murdoch, the director of Baker's Dozen. What we're going to bring to you this season is something that's never been done on broadcast television. Why? I think that a lot of old ladies are going to be writing letters saying, "Take this off the air. This is horrible. Why would you play this? You're corrupting our youth." But that's what we're bringing to you.
I'm giving 13 lovely young ladies the chance to get to know me a little bit better. It's because I'm looking for true love. I'm not looking for fame like Flavor Flav or Bret Michaels. I don't need that shit. Then girls would just start wanting me for my cheese and not my butter, and I'd never find real love. I'm looking for a girl who I can relate to and connect to on all levels. Someone to be my other half. To be the bread to my butter.
Well, I can say that Alex Baker is a sex god, or so I've been told. Any girl would be lucky as hell to have that guy. Once, he winked at me, and I just melted inside. Or at least, I think he winked at me. Maybe it was a squint, but I'm going to count it as a wink because it totally made my day.
Welcome to Baker.
what's up. This is perfect. So you guys saw the Baker's dozen, huh? All right. Awesemo himself. That's where he became a legend. Did that pilot ever get picked up? Did that ever actually air, Adam?
The Baker's Dozen pilot?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it aired on channels that I wasn't allowed to watch yet.
Had him blocked from your TV.
Yeah.
Good television, though, man. It's good stuff. I mean, look, could have been a YouTube series. Who knows? Anyway, what's going on,
before
guys?
his time.
What's that?
He was before his time.
I know. Certainly was. Happy to be with 90 likes. Was there not a show before us?
I think we lost them all when we showed the Baker's Dozen.
Jeepers creepers. Hit that thumbs up before we even get into this. I mean, come on, 90 likes. Oh, I'm insulted, offended, ashamed, embarrassed. Get us up to 200 here out of the gate. But appreciate you guys being with us to close out the week. We got 10 games on a Friday, kicking it off a little bit early today. A little early today. But that's okay because we got to get through all of this. Hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. You want to join, hit join down below. Get the super chats, free super chats, custom emojis. There's sweet badges. Jacob blinging now. All right, iced up, and you always get premium access to or priority access to questions and comments in the along with our Discord members. Sorry, thrown off, man. I love watching the Baker's Dozen. It's good stuff. Alex looked so young there. It's insane. What was it? 2008.
Yeah, you said 2008, so I was 18, which I know he's a couple years older than me, so he was probably like 20.
Yeah, I was 21. Crazy stuff. So how you feeling today, dude?
Good. This slate's pretty crazy.
Are you gonna tell everybody what you're doing for this birthday party for your best friend's kid's birthday party? What you're gonna do as a birthday gift?
Oh yeah. So I decided that I think the most logical thing is, instead of just Venmoing him money, I'm gonna make the effort. I'm gonna get a card for the 2-year-old, but I have a lot of ones sitting around my apartment left over from recreational activities, and I'm gonna just stuff those in a card, and that's one way to get rid of them. And I'm gonna give the card, to my friend, and he's gonna be like mind blown that I put in the effort to get a card. And then at some point, him and his wife will open it, and everything will just come back to normal.
Now, I'm assuming this card will be the most generic card you can find. Am I right?
Oh, absolutely. I'm going to just like
a happy second birthday.
Yeah, stop in Walgreens, CVS, whatever, birthday, something that isn't like some weird joke about that would be weird to give it to a 2-year-old. Not that they can read, but I don't want like it being applied to the 2-year-old. Yeah, and just generic birthday card with, like 50 ones in it or something.
I can't wait. Can't wait. Good thing this is your best friend.
Yeah, at the moment.
I did. Well, I digress. Actually, that's not true. We haven't gone anywhere yet. I'll say this much. With 10 games today, the question I always ask you needs to be asked because you had Milwaukee rule out most of the entire starting lineup right after the Clippers ruled out most of their entire starting lineup. And then last night we got news, or yesterday we got news that Memphis was likely not going to play anybody today. So just another weird slate. It's April 1st. And this is the most appropriate way to kick off April basketball than anything.
Yeah. So somebody said, hopefully the 2-year-old isn't a girl. I actually did think about that. I was just like, there won't be any weird vibes because like it is a boy. So like, there's no.
You couldn't do that if it was a girl.
Right. Like I can't. Yeah. It would.
No.
It would come off.
I mean,
like
you
weird.
shouldn't do it with it being a boy. But
I mean, for one, it's not going to. I don't think it's going to get opened there. For two, somebody said, hopefully it's not open in front of the family. His wife doesn't let him hang out with me anyway, so it's just reinforcing that she shouldn't.
Here's what I want to happen. I want it to be. Is it an outside party? Is it outside too?
I mean, it's just at their house, so inside.
Do they have a yard?
I think it might be supposed to rain though. What?
Well, I'm hoping it doesn't rain, but it's windy. And he rips and he rips open the card, right? And just ones start raining everywhere. Mom's standing right there. Ones are just coming down.
The best would be
there and have to explain what just happened.
The best part would be mom is inside doing something. He opens the card. She walks out as ones are raining everywhere.
That's what I'm saying.
And we can just blame him for why there's one.
Got to teach him early. All right. Jacob with the super chat. Can we take a quick break to watch Baker's Dozen pilot again? Dude, just go back. Go back, man. Thanks for the super chat, though.
Somebody said, oh my God, she's going to think that's from the strip club. They are from the strip club. That's why I have so many ones that I'm trying to get rid of.
I'm not sure I've ever walked out of one with like 50 and ones still. Usually I get good bang for my buck.
Well, so
I don't really go to them. I don't enjoy them personally. That is
I'm like hit or miss.
Fact.
I'm hit or miss on if I enjoy them. But the reason that I have them left over is because there's the one 4 blocks up from me. So most recently,
that could change things for me.
Yeah. So most recently, I just was like drunk on a Sunday. One of the bartenders where I was at was getting off work. And I was like, hey, let's go to the strip club. Like, she's like, I'm broke. I'm not going to the strip club. I was like, yeah, it's just whatever. I just want to go. I'll give you some money to throw. And like, so I just start getting like money out of the ATM and we had fun. But then like, I still had ones left over because it was a Sunday and it was dead.
I guess that makes sense. All right. So what I was talking about earlier, since we have 10 games to get through, a lot of Milwaukee Clippers ruled out their teams. Detroit has a bunch of somewhat significant absences. We're expecting Memphis to sit most of these guys. Ja's already out. Wendell Carter Jr.'s out. Like, there's so much news. Is this like a guaranteed stars and scrubs slate? You got to pay attention to me. Is this a guaranteed?
No, I'm listening. I'm laughing at chat, but I'm listening.
Okay, then answer my question.
Oh, okay. Well, you cut it off. I thought you were gonna finish it. But is it a guaranteed stars and scrubs slate? Yes and no. I mean, there's for sure a ton of value. The reason that I say yes and no is that whether you decide to jam in 2 of like Jokic, Luka, LeBron, whoever, or go one of them and then like an extra 8K guy, I think is kind of at your discretion. But as far as there being a ton of value and guys that you're going to pay down for, without a doubt. One thing that is nice about the slate in general is that it kind of sucks when you get a slate where like there's one team or one game that has a lot of value and then nothing else that's comparable. On a slate like this, though, you have 2 teams that have 8 players total. You have a Memphis team that we're expecting to be missing 4 of their main guys. We have a Detroit team that's missing a lot of their main pieces. So there are at least options. I think it's going to be a very high scoring slate, but at least there's options within the value where you're still going to see the field concentrate on some group of the value options just because that's how it works. And you can still find pivots to them, which makes it kind of fun, kind of similar to like a normal slate in terms of having options, just different from a normal slate in terms of how high scoring is going to be.
All right. Adi says, I love Loughy, sidetracks everything, but when he's ready, he says, I need you to pay attention. Have you guys not realized that in the past months, ever since Adam realized that we had a YouTube chat and he was able to actually view the comments as they came in, that he's been as bad, if not worse than I am? I can't believe I'm still taking the brunt of all of this. Once you discovered YouTube chat, it was a game changer, and you would admit that.
Yeah, and to answer El Negro Loco, no, Adam is not simping. Adam is just bribing people to go to the strip club with him.
Yeah, why would you be? What would make you a simp?
I assume he was saying because I just basically gave money to the girl that was bartending to come with me, but it was just that I wanted to go, and she wasn't going to go with her own money, so.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I wasn't listening. All right, let's get in. Seeing he's not listening now. All right.
I was listening. I was just ignoring you.
Robert took second in the mini max 3K single entry. Thanks, guys. Awesome, man. Congrats. And Wallfell says, chill Loughy, you're the worst. Oh, well, that's nice of you. Thanks, pal. All right.
Never seen anything smarter in YouTube chat.
Dallas and Washington, you got the Mavs laying 8 points against the Wizards, 217.5 point total. Let's kick it off here. Only a couple 7 p.m. games today. It's basically Luka and nothing else here, right? Like, am I missing something?
No, and that's going to be the case for a lot of the teams on this slate is that, so for example, like Jalen Brunson at 6K looks fine. But given all of the value on this slate, it's almost not even worth mentioning that he looks okay. Luka looks good at 12-1. It's going to be pretty easy to get there. Obviously, it's a good matchup and all of that. Like, if Brunson lands in a lineup somewhere, that's fine. But, like, if it were yesterday's slate, Brunson would actually look really good. It would kind of be like the Karis LeVert play, maybe a little bit worse. But here, it's just, like, yeah, he looks like he's slightly underpriced at 6K. He should probably be like 6,500. But on this slate, who really cares, given how much value there is?
Yeah. Our projections over on OddsShop are really like the Reggie Bullock overs today, but it doesn't really translate to DFS. Like, it's just playing a lot of minutes, like the overs, projected well above them, nice expected ROI, but not translating to anything from a DFS standpoint. Washington, on the other hand, we've had this a lot in the last week, and fortunately, we're not going to have to deal with this today, where both of us would essentially just say, yeah, well, you could play Avdia, you can play whoever it is. It was Satoransky, if it was Harold Neto in the starting lineup, any of these guys, Rui Hachimura. But today, it's just all of the value completely wipes Washington off the slate, unless you think Kristaps is still viable in a pretty tough spot against the Mavs.
I mean, viable in the sense that he's a good point per minute guy. One thing I'm a little concerned about, and I don't think it's going to be an issue tonight, but Washington was eliminated yesterday, so they officially have nothing to play for other than trying to get the best lottery ticket that they can. My guess, my sort of narrative-based guess, is that they play Porzingis normally tonight, and then we get news after the Dallas game that Porzingis is going to be shut down. But I don't know. So at 9K, like, there's certainly still a ceiling for Porzingis, but there's also a lot of guys that I just like a little bit more.
We had a Discord question. How important are groups going to be today? Do you want to just get to that when we get to the certain games that require the most attention to groups?
Yeah, I think we can just talk about it within each team. It's going to be easier.
I don't think you're pulling any simp moves over there, but simp my money is pretty funny.
That's not bad.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good. Gotta give him credit. Used to be shit my modem. All that.
Oh yeah, back when when I was actually in mom's basement.
At least no one called you an incel.
Yeah. I can't believe
worse?
you didn't I can't believe you didn't know what that was until like 3 months ago.
Huh?
I can't believe you didn't know what that was until recently.
Yeah, man, I'm getting an involuntary celibate.
Yeah.
I get no. We talked about this. We talked about all of these. Now I know. It's a good one though. All right, let's keep it going here. Unless there's anything else for Wash, I think we can move on because we're gonna have to talk about some of these games extensively.
Josh is an extroverted incel. and married, so
yeah. See, a lot of people didn't know what it meant, unless you're like trolling social media. But that word was not used when I was younger at all.
It wasn't used when I was younger. I guess I just see it enough on Twitter.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. Especially if you're on political Twitter, it's just the vitriol back and forth is out of control. All right. Should we talk about the Toronto Raptors today in a road matchup, big favorites against the Orlando Magic, who will not be with, or who will not have Wendell Carter Jr. or again, Jalen Suggs. But let's start it off with Siakam at the top. We can talk Anunoby, who's relatively okay priced, but it just feels like there are a lot of teams that are going to be not only on the back burner, but almost insignificant tonight.
Yeah, kind of both of these teams, but Toronto, it's another one of those teams where, like, yeah, if you're playing 150 lineups and you happen to land on a lineup that has Siakam or Van Vliet or Anunoby, like whoever, that's fine. Anunoby's another example of someone that, if we had yesterday's slate, would probably get a lot of ownership, would be a really good play. But today he's just sort of there. On FanDuel, Van Vliet I know is 7,300, which is certainly much more appealing than 8,400 on DraftKings. Still kind of the same thing, but definitely more underpriced there than he is on DraftKings. But yeah, it's just a team where it's a good matchup. Like somebody on Toronto probably does well tonight, but I'm not prioritizing any of this because basically the way I view this slate is unless you're on a team that is missing like 3+ normal starters, or you are an absolute superstar, you're not a priority.
Exactly. And that it makes it really tough to even I guess how would you try to like quantify what makes a good tournament play today, just given that so many of these priorities are in such phenomenal spots? Like, you know what I mean? Do you really have to dig that deep for these tournament plays tonight?
No, and that's why I think this slate, even though there's so much value, it's kind of normal in that you're still going to get basically like a bucket of guys that look relatively similar, some a little bit better than others. And the ones that look the best are going to get a massive amount of ownership. And the ones that look slightly worse are still going to get ownership, but not quite as much. The only difference is that normally you're talking about that bucket being guys that are like $8,000 plus, whereas tonight it's like $5K and below because there's so much value. So I think that like normally we talk about like when you're pivoting in tournaments, mostly you're talking about more expensive guys because even if, for example, Luka clearly or Jokic clearly looks like the best pay up option, Luka's still going to beat him a really high percentage of the time. Whereas normally you have, let's say, like that $4,300 Tyus Jones play from a couple of weeks ago, and there's just nobody even comparable. Tonight, it's kind of the opposite, where there's a few pay up options. They all look really good, but there's like a million really cheap guys that you can like, navigate between. So it's kind of like to be a good tournament play, a top tier tournament play, you still kind of have to be in one of those groups, either one of the best point per minute guys on the slate, like Luka or Murray or Jokic, or one of the best values on the slate, like 30 guys that we're going to talk about.
We'll get to some of those 30 guys in a second. We got to talk about Orlando first, though. So Orlando's like worse than Toronto tonight, right?
Yeah.
I don't see anything on here of any value, and everyone else, even with Wendell Carter Jr. out, is a 6K Mo Bamba really going to cut it today? You know what I mean? It doesn't make much sense. Like even a 58 Franz Wagner, nothing stands out.
Right, exactly. Even a $4,900 Okiki, like none of this looks very appealing because for one, the price tags have come up a bit, like for the most part. And for two, Orlando is actively trying not to win games. So that's not really helpful when you say like, oh, Cole Anthony sees a bump in usage without Suggs and Carter, knowing that there's a good chance that if he's playing well, Orlando says, get your ass on the bench, you're not going back in. So it's a little bit of a problem there. They still have plenty of bodies too. And like even Markelle Fultz, he's coming off of that massive game against Washington where we joked about the friends and family game, and then he just went out there and lit up the Wizards. But
he went insane.
He still only played like 21 minutes. Like I saw his final line and I was like, oh, maybe they finally like unleashed Fultz and he played 28 minutes. He played 21 minutes. Yeah. So you still can't like rely on that. And even though Orlando is shorthanded in that they're missing Suggs and they're missing Carter, they still have plenty of bodies. They also have Devin Kennedy available tonight. I don't know if he'll play or not, but that's another body in the like Jeff Doughton category where you can look back tomorrow and say, like, I don't know who the hell this person is, but he played, 20 something minutes. So it's just really tough to get to Orlando.
Ross K. Now he's just intentionally being insulting. Does Adam remind you of the DJ Qualls character in the movie Road Trip, specifically right after they spent the night at the all black fraternity? Wait, Road Trip is not the one I'm thinking of. Which is the one where DJ Qualls, was it not the new guy? Was it the new guy?
DJ Qualls is in New Guy. I haven't seen that in a really long time.
Isn't he the main character?
Yeah. I actually watched Road Trip. Well, semi-watched, like turned it on while I was falling asleep somewhat recently.
I don't remember.
I don't remember the fraternity scene though. I think I fell asleep before that part.
Yeah, I don't remember. I've seen Road Trip. I just don't remember that scene.
I fell asleep not long after Tom Green like got bit by the snake that he had been trying to feed for the entire movie.
I do remember that part.
Yeah.
Is that? No, that's not the movie where they get the dog high. That's another one, right? What movie was that?
Where they get the dog high
on the front porch and he starts talking to him like with the old man.
I don't remember. The first
Really?
thing I thought of when you said the dog was Van Wilder when they neuter him and put it in sandwiches.
No, not that one. There's one, chat will tell me in a second, where they're out. No, it's not Grandma's Boy. Okay, someone said, yeah, that was Road Trip. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Road Trip's a great movie. I got to watch it again. No. Grandma's Boy's there. I'm talking about on the front porch with, that's right. That's right. All right. Indy. So are we just assuming that Goga plays and that Brogdon is out? And I don't know what to make of Brissett and Jackson. Chris Duarte's already out. What a mess.
I kind of don't give a shit. Like
I guess that's a good point. Yeah.
So I mean, like Indiana is a pain to talk about, and they still are because they haven't changed their injury report all day. I'm assuming Brogdon sits. Like they've come up with every excuse in the world for him not to play recently. It would be weird if he comes back at all this year. But beyond that, I don't know what to do with Isaiah Jackson. I don't know what to do with Batadze. I don't know what to do with Brissett. Like I have no feel for what the status on these guys is. But when you kind of think about who, like, when you go through, like, okay, well, what would happen if this person is out? You kind of realize that you don't care that much because, for one, it's still a brutal matchup with Boston. For two, the pricing has come up on Indiana because we've been dealing with this for like 2 weeks now. Like, let's say Isaiah Jackson and Goga are out. Terry Taylor at 4,100 or 4,800 on DraftKings, certainly playable, but still not going to be a priority over a lot of the other things we're going to talk about. Justin Anderson at 4,500, playable here and there, but not a priority. Jalen Smith at 5,800 only played like 20 minutes last game. Granted, that was with Goga in and Jackson out. Taylor played 35 minutes. Like, I think you could certainly see 30 minutes for Smith, 28 for Taylor tonight. If Goga's in and Jackson's out or something like that. But none of these price tags are that appealing in the context of we have multiple teams that are missing everybody.
I got to tell you, I'm definitely worried about this Boston game just getting insanely out of control early on. And maybe I shouldn't be, but Jaylen Brown's getting ownership because he's not expensive, but 17% at 8K. I think it's reasonable. Tatum's at 11% at over 10,000. But then, like, even Al Horford in a spot like this, if there was ever a time not to give him 34 minutes again, it would be against this Indy team, which we assume will be shorthanded once again, has no intentions of winning. I don't know. I just have some reservations here, but I do totally get why Jaylen Brown being 8K at shooting guard and small forward is getting a little bit of attention.
Yeah, I understand why Boston's getting attention in particular because it's kind of, me and Josh went back and forth with this morning. Like, not that you want to project blowouts, but it would be shocking if Boston does not beat the hell out of Indiana.
Yeah.
But the thing is, and Josh's point was, if you run this game like 1,000 times, Jason Tatum's average minutes are probably like 34 instead of 37. But my point was also not that he has to have a good game. If he's only going to average 34, if he only plays 34 minutes, he doesn't have to have a good game. It could certainly be Jaylen Brown. It could be guys off the bench. Peyton Pritchard makes it, takes it makes it, a non-competitive game. There's a bunch of ways it can go, but over those 1,000 games or over those 1,000 simulations, if Tatum is going to average, let's say 34 minutes instead of 37, he's going to average more fantasy points per minute than average as well. So that's the thing you want to be careful with. And that's what we talk about a lot. And you've seen it recently with like Indiana games. For example, the game the other day, not that it ended up being a blowout because somehow Indiana came back, but Jokic had 35 DraftKings points at the end of the first quarter. And so, like, that particular day in high stakes, I didn't have Jokic and he was like 60% owned. And so I'm looking at the score because at the end of one, it was like a 30-point lead for Denver. And I'm like, oh, cool, Jokic isn't going to get full run. And then I'm like, it doesn't matter because he has 35 DraftKings points in 12 minutes. So that's kind of the thing where I'm still interested in Tatum. I'm still interested in Brown because they should just light this team up. Brown more than Tatum for me, just because 8K is a crazy cheap price tag. He is getting a little bit more ownership at 16% as well. But I'm still interested in the Celtics because Indiana is really, really bad and likely to give up a ton of fantasy points in a hurry.
I do totally get that. The only thing that's a little bit different, and I know you were just using Jokic as like the first example to come to mind, but Jokic is is the Nuggets. The Boston Celtics do have
Right.
a few other options that can produce, and then you just have like this collective effort where they crush them. But in order to crush Indy, and I know that didn't necessarily happen last game, but even so, Jokic has to do so much of that work.
Right. Well, and also to kind of just clarify what I was saying, because somebody in chat said Indy also closed the gap, so Jokic got full run. Jokic also only scored like 70 fantasy points in that game, because Indy closed the gap. Like Jokic had like 40 DraftKings points at halftime after having like 35 in the first quarter. So it's a situation where they closed the gap because Jokic stopped scoring fantasy points. But the point I'm making is that a decent amount of the time, Brown/Tatum is going to have just an obscene point per minute rate if this game gets out of hand. But to what you're saying, and I agree completely, and it's what Josh was saying this morning as well, there's a much better chance that Boston blows out Indiana and everybody just does mediocre than Denver, because Denver is absolute ass outside of Jokic, whereas Boston is really good.
Right. Put bluntly, Denver is absolute ass outside of Jokic. You're right. Hey, let me just say, that little call to action at the beginning. Appreciate you guys. Put us almost 300 likes on this show. We only had like 600 watching at the time. So, I mean, the ratio there is superb. But if you haven't done so yet, let's rack these number ups heading into the weekend. And subscribe. Thanks for getting us to 75,000 subscribers, too. It's a pretty big accomplishment around this way, for sure. All right, let's talk about Phoenix and the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, Phoenix, 7.5-point favorites. I actually thought it would be a little bit more with everyone expected to sit for Memphis, but I'm wondering how much of this has to do with the fact that Memphis has just been so good against the spread, whether Ja's in or out. I mean, they're 54-23 against the spread this season, by far the best team. Or I'm sorry, they're 50-27 against the spread this season, which is absurd. But at the same time, you're expected to be without Tyus Jones. You're already without Ja. You're expected to be without Steven Adams, Jaren Jackson, and Desmond Bane. So as of now, Adam, it's not even projected to be a legitimate blowout. Phoenix on the road, 7.5-point favorites, but that doesn't really make them look exciting.
For Phoenix, no. I mean, they are.
Now, we'll get to Memphis.
Right. Like, yeah, you can argue that Phoenix should probably produce at a little bit higher rate, given that Memphis is missing all of its expected to miss all of its starters except for Dillon Brooks. But you still have Chris Paul competing with Devin Booker competing with Paul, Ayton being out there. So if you get to a little bit of Booker, Paul, Ayton, like any of that is fine, because they're still capable of putting up massive scores. Ayton in particular should benefit from whatever combination of Brandon Clark and Xavier Tillman he sees. But it's still just a team where you're not a true superstar in terms of fantasy production. I don't want to get into what Devin Booker is in the NBA, but he's not Luka Doncic. He's not DeJounte Murray from a fantasy standpoint. Neither is Chris Paul. DeAndre Ayton is not Jokic from a fantasy standpoint. So it's just like you're not a top tier point per dollar option, and you're not a top tier point per minute option. So you automatically become a secondary option.
Exactly. You can't say the same for Memphis. Now, watch, they all just end up playing. But assuming now that with all of them doubtful they will sit, that leaves you without all those guys that I was talking about. 5 key players. How much of the regular starting lineup is that, right? It's Ja.
80%.
It's everybody but Dillon Brooks, right?
Yeah.
Yep. So everybody but Dillon Brooks. Now, they have a pretty deep bench, and you see deep rotations, but still at a big disadvantage. All we really care about here is the fantasy value. Brandon Clark, DeAnthony Melton, Xavier Tillman. I mean, you can go down the list here. Dillon Brooks is sub 6K, and he's only getting 17%. So all of them, even like, honestly, would you be shocked if Kyle Anderson had a good game, even though Slow-Mo isn't exactly the most productive player out there? And it's not the best matchup against Phoenix by any stretch, but it might not really matter tonight.
I feel like Slow-Mo's nickname being Slow-Mo makes people think he's a lot worse at DFS than he is. Not saying you specifically, but like, no. I know it happened to me too. Like, he's not a bad point per minute guy when he gets the opportunities. And
what is he?
This is like a difficult
0.9, 0.88 or something.
Yeah, depending on who's on the floor.
Without me looking.
Yeah, like this is a difficult one to quantify because obviously you haven't gotten a lot of minutes this year where you don't have Morant or Jackson or Bane, but you kind of just have to think about what you know about these players, and you get, a somewhat of a sample. Like DeAnthony Melton's played 336 minutes without Morant, Jackson, or Bane. That's not excluding Tyus Jones. So the ball's going to be in Melton's hands probably even more tonight than it otherwise would be. But he's still at 1.14 DraftKings points per minute. Kyle Anderson's played 284 minutes without those guys, 1.09 DraftKings points per minute. Brandon Clark has played 174 minutes without them, 1.14 DraftKings points per minute. So like you have all of that. Dylan Brooks has played 138 minutes, 30.7% usage, 1.14 DraftKings points per minute. So the thing about Memphis tonight, not only do they have a difficult matchup against Phoenix, but they do still have plenty of bodies. I wouldn't be surprised if nobody on Memphis plays more than 30 minutes tonight. Like if they say, okay, like we're going to get Dylan Brooks some run just because, he's been out for a lot of the year, but there's no reason for us to play him 36 minutes when this game means nothing. Same with DeAnthony Melton. Like he's an actual rotation piece for Memphis. Does he play more minutes tonight than normal? I would assume so, but I'd be surprised if he just goes out there and plays like 36 minutes unless he just is pissed off at Phoenix from like 3 years ago and wants to. So that's kind of the negative on Memphis, but the positive is that they're not getting, for the most part, as much ownership as you're going to get on teams like Milwaukee, the Clippers, maybe OKC. We have Brandon Clark projected for 33% ownership, but he's 4K with power forward and center eligibility, has a 31% chance of being optimal. He's, I assume, going to start in place of Steven Adams and play, 28 minutes or something. Makes him look phenomenal. Xavier Tillman, I expect to back him up unless he starts, but I expect Tillman to back up Clark, play 20 to 22 minutes at 3,100, makes him look very good. He's averaged 0.95 DraftKings points per minute in 230 minutes without those guys. Melton, we know is a good point per minute guy. Brooks is going to get plenty of opportunities. Anderson is a good point per minute guy. And then even Conchar, Culver, Williams, like there's going to be minutes available for them. I think that Conchar and Culver are more interesting to me than Williams, even though I expect Williams to start, because even without Morant, Jackson, Bane on the floor, 165 minutes for Williams, 0.68 DraftKings points per minute, whereas for Conchar, you're at 0.97. For Culver, you're at 0.95. The way I put it with Josh this morning is that in situations like this where I still really don't have a good feel for how many minutes people are going to play because Memphis still has plenty of options, I lean towards the guys
incentive to win games.
What'd you say?
And zero incentive to win games.
Right. It doesn't matter if they win, doesn't matter if they lose, they are where they are. So I still just, I lean towards, when in doubt, I lean towards the better point per minute guys, because when you talk about somebody like Zaire Williams, if he plays a couple more minutes than I expect, or he's the guy that gets the bulk of the minutes out of that group, you also then need him to produce at a better rate than he normally does. Whereas with guys like Conchar and Culver, if they play, even if they don't get as many minutes as Williams, they're good point per minute guys, so they can get there anyway. And then if they do happen to pick up a few extra minutes, you're just kind of playing with house money at that point. So group wise, I would say it's kind of at your discretion if you want to play Clark and Tillman together. They are cheap enough that I don't hate it, but I also wouldn't be surprised if they don't share the floor. And given how many other value options there are, I don't totally love having them together. I don't think I would want more than one of the Conchar, Culver, Williams group either.
Yeah, the only thing too is that I don't think you're going to see any scenario where even if guys aren't sharing the floor together, one of them plays 35 and the other plays 13. So
right,
not to say that you want to do that anyway, because it could be a 29 and 19 situation too. But like we don't have anybody on Awesemo, our projections, we don't have anyone projected for north of 30 minutes. Dylan Brooks, we have at 29.6, Clark at 26.4, Melton at 27.7, Zaire 28.3. Like all of that, like you said, it's really tough to project that, but I agree with it. I just don't think you can go out there, and you were saying that at the top, like, yeah. I don't think you can go out there and just say, all right, give Dylan Brooks 35 minutes because everyone else is out. It doesn't make any sense. Completely
agree with that. And I completely agree with what I'm looking at in Awesemo's projections. Somebody asked about Santi Aldama. He's still a thing in the sense that he is active. I assume he's in the rotation tonight. assuming he's not starting, there's no reason that I don't have any reason to think that he's ahead of any of Williams, Conchar, or Culver. But he is someone that if for whatever reason he's starting, he's a 0.83 fantasy point per minute guy at 3K flat, and you should play him if he's starting. But assuming he's not starting, I would be getting to Conchar, Culver, Williams before I get to Aldama, just because I think he's behind all of those guys in the rotation, in addition to Kyle Anderson and Xavier Tillman being ahead of him.
Cheyenne with a super chat. Portis or Stewart on FanDuel. Thoughts on Javon Carter? So Portis or Stewart on Let me see what the prices are.
Portis is 5K. I know that. So I'm pretty sure my answer is Portis.
You would certainly think so. Yeah.
People didn't realize that you're Ben the Better and that you just were joking around on Twitter for all these years.
What do you mean?
Oh, you didn't see his tweet?
No, what happened?
Oh, so he tweeted earlier, like as an April Fool's thing, I assume, that he'd been hired by Awesemo and that he was very excited to start doing shows with me. So I replied and said that the strategy show this morning was my last show on Awesemo and I would not be back. But then a few people in chat have been like, I was tuning in expecting to see Ben the Better and Adam. And so I was saying that they didn't realize that you've just been running that account as like a super sharp betting person for the last year plus.
Did people actually think? People didn't actually think that.
No, there's no chance people actually thought that.
No, okay. Just make it sure. Fantasy Cruncher had a bit of an April Fool's joke today.
What?
I don't know. I thought it was.
Oh, you're talking about the NFT?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if. I didn't. Yeah, that's actually. I hadn't thought about it in that context. I was just kind of like, yeah, whatever. Just get off my screen.
I feel like it's clearly something Dave would do.
Yeah. Now that you mentioned it, I'm like, oh, yeah, that's definitely him making fun of. Yeah, it was like a 10-step program to get an NFT or something.
Yeah, it was tier 10. It's got to be, man. There's no way. It's definitely.
We're about to get like a cease and desist mid-show. Like, stop making fun of Dave's 10-step program.
No, man. Come on. It has to be. I'm pretty confident in that. If not, Dave, hook me up.
I hadn't thought about it until you said that. But
yeah,
my reaction to it, like once you said that, I was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, he used to Rick roll people and stuff. Like,
right. Yeah. Dave's a prankster over there.
Yeah, there's been a bunch of stuff that's gone on. So it's got to be in April. There's no God, I hope it's
it'll be hilarious. Like this is like the thing that he's been drawing up for 3 months, like working super hard on, and you're just like, this is clearly an April Fool's joke.
Just the fact that it seems like something he would do to make fun of that. It really does.
Yeah. As soon as you said it, I was like, oh yeah, that's completely something Dave would do.
Yeah. And then David and Joku got Ian Rappaport today. He felt
I saw that. Yeah.
That was good.
Yeah. I sent you the really good meme response also.
Oh yeah. What was that?
Yeah. I don't remember.
Good answer. Plead the fifth.
Yeah.
Just since Memphis is a super popular team today with presumably 80% of their starting lineup out, if you're prioritizing these guys, what's the best way to do it? Just in terms of like maybe the lower owned guys, which one of those do you like the most? I'm not saying just, all right, I like him the most. I like him. But like, if there's one of the lower owned guys, is it Kyle Anderson that you think is the one that we should be getting to?
Of the lower owned guys?
Yeah, it's gotta be, right?
Kyle Anderson at 12%, Conchar at 5%, Culver at 2%. So Conchar, Culver are kind of, to me, the perfect example of guys you should be using in large field tournaments on a slate like this, because you can't be confident in their minutes projection or their point projection, but they're both good fantasy point per minute guys. And the median projection that like every site is going to give them is, 22 to 24 minutes, but there's no actual reason that one of them can't play 28. Not saying it's the most likely, but they can, and they're not bad point per minute guys. And it's just that example of like, sometimes like I'll try and think about what the slate will look like when we talk about it like tomorrow. And they're just very obvious examples of like people looking back on the slate and being like, damn, I probably should have been more willing to roll the dice on somebody like Conchar or Culver, knowing that there was a ton of volatility in Memphis's minutes. So I am interested in them at super low ownership. As far as the guys getting ownership, yeah, Kyle Anderson at 12%. Like, he's someone that can handle the ball too. So it's not like you're just looking to him to increase usage. He can get increased playmaking opportunities as well.
Hey, we got a new sponsor, Tyler. Let's pull it up, baby. New sponsor of the Deeper Dive, Thrive Fantasy. Remember them, Adam? I know you do. You and Josh used to have those battles, which he claims he swept.
Oh, yeah. Josh beat me, and he won a bet against me.
I think he was saying he swept you in a 7-game series or something. I'm sure.
Yeah, I think Josh put more hours in a week into that than I put into my job.
All right, if you haven't checked out Thrive Fantasy, though, now's the time. Eliminate countless hours of research using the Thrive Fantasy app and focus only on the top players who have the biggest impact on games. Here's how you do it. Choose 10 out of the 20 player props to hit their assigned over or under. Hit the most props and you win. It is that simple. Thrive has pushed their start time back to 7:30 Eastern for tonight's 4K NBA Friday contest and is also featuring a $500 Awesemo exclusive free roll, just a free roll, for exclusive free roll. Just use the password Awesemo, AWESEMO, all lowercase. It is case sensitive to get in that. Awesemo, get you in the $500 free roll using that promo code AWESEMO, all lowercase. And when you sign up, this is big, make sure to also use the promo code Awesemo, AWESEMO, because you'll get up to $100 first match deposit, you will get $100 first match deposit bonus, up to $250 if you do so. It's a solid bonus. Download the Thrive Fantasy app in the App Store or the Google Play Store, or click the link in the video description below to head to thrivefantasy.com. Sponsor of the Deeper Dive. Get in on that free roll. All right, let's keep it going here. 4 down, 6 to go. What do we got next up on the docket here? It is what's going on?
Cut the stream. Loughy's having a stroke.
What?
Caleb McLean said, "Cut the stream. Loughy's having a stroke."
Oh. What do we got next? Sacramento, Houston. Yeah, that's right. Sacramento -3. It'll happen eventually. I've actually.
You'll have a stroke on camera.
I've thought about, like, if you get a little bit older and I'm still doing these shows, am I going to be the guy that like dies on a live stream and it goes viral on bestgore.com? It wouldn't really be gore, but it'd be like one of those shock sites, like, daily fantasy sports host, and everyone's like, what's that? Dies on live stream.
I mean, I've thought about it in the context of, I live by myself. At least if I have a heart attack on a show, somebody's going to know within like, I'm not going to be like just dead in my apartment for like 4 days until somebody smells me.
That's a great. I have to tell you this. Someone asked if I'm sloshed. No, I mispronounced something and I went with it. Come on. That's how you get people to remember things. You know what I mean? So this local pizza place, a couple towns over, woman just gets charged with murder, right? Lady that owns it, with her partner. They weren't married, but they were together. Murdered him. They found her because she murdered him in their home and then was asking people if they could find someone who was able to dig a 7-foot deep hole, 3 feet across and 8 feet long. She was giving specific dimensions to dig a hole in her backyard.
For a grave.
And then asked, can anyone tell me how to get rid of this skunk smell? Really, it was a rotting corpse in her garage. And people were like, that seems a bit fishy. And she got caught.
Yeah, that's a good way to get caught.
Can you believe
one of my friends lived, he lives like across the harbor from me in Baltimore, but he lived like, him and a couple of friends lived on one floor, and then there was somebody above them. And he said the dude above them just like died. And like lived by himself, just like died. He said there was somebody like that would come by. He thinks that like the person above him owed money to somebody, and so like somebody will come and like sit outside their house. My friend said he finally went out and was like, "Yo, that dude died. You can stop sitting out here."
Really? That's great. Well, it's not great, but it's a good story nonetheless. All right. Yeah, I mean, that's just, oh God. And then she goes, she said that he stabbed, or that he was like choking her. So then she shot him in the head and never called the police. That also sounds relatively fishy, no?
Yeah, it does.
All right, Sacramento. Let's talk about this one. No De'Aaron Fox. That's no surprise to anybody here. They are not looking to win.
All right, Terry, that's just overboard. We went dark. You just he worries that he's going to die and his dog and cat are going to have to eat him.
God, Terry, you are morbid.
What a sick person.
You are morbid. I mean, we're just having fun over here, and Terry takes it to another level. So it's
Downtown Harbor in Baltimore, not the same as it used to be. Yeah, it's nicer.
Do you think Damian Jones gets another 34 minutes? If he wasn't in foul trouble, it looked like he was pacing 40 minutes almost last game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about 34. I'm not gonna.
No, I'm just saying. Last game he played 34 and only played 3 minutes in the third because of foul trouble.
Yeah, pretty crazy. Like how many? Like you're right. He could have played a lot more, and he certainly can tonight as well. I think expecting around 30 on average is reasonable. One really interesting thing from the rotation in that game was that Alex Len still only played 3.5 minutes. You got backup center minutes from like Trey Lyles, basically Trey Lyles, when Len was out. So, but you also had Jeremy Lamb play like 24 minutes. So basically, I think that Sacramento's rotation outside of the main guys got a little bit more complicated, but it also gives you the opportunity in large field tournaments to take a shot at some of these guys at pretty low ownership. Starting with, I guess, the fringe pieces first. Well, you mentioned Jones. I think he's fine. Like he's projected for 9% ownership, has about a 10% chance of being optimal on DraftKings, $5,500 center, good spot. I would expect around 30 minutes, give or take. He looks pretty good. But then you get some of these low owned pieces where we have Jeremy Lamb projected for 1% ownership. He played 24 minutes last game. Could he play 16 today? Sure, and he would suck. But if he plays 24 minutes at 3,500 against Houston, he's probably doing really well. Similarly, Chimezie Metu only played 16 minutes last game. But let's say he takes minutes from Jeremy Lamb. If Lamb plays 16, you can get 22 to 24 from Metu at 4K and less than 1% ownership. So those guys, like I wouldn't want to play them together, but this game's likely to have a lot of fantasy points. And one of those two guys is likely to play a nice chunk of minutes and look good at their respective salaries at low ownership. So I'm interested there. As far as the not obscure plays, Trey Lyles at 6K, I think is reasonable, not a priority. Davion Mitchell at 8K, averaging about a fantasy point per minute without Fox, Sabonis, and Halliburton. He's averaging 40 minutes per game without those guys. I think on average, you're probably over a larger sample going to get like 37 or 38. So he still looks decent. Barnes looks fine at 6,100. So I don't think there's necessarily any one guy from Sacramento that is a true priority because, again, going back to what I'd said from the beginning, none of these guys are the best point per dollar options or even really close. None of them are the best point per minute guys, but there are several guys on Sacramento that are relatively low owned that not a whole lot has to break in your favor for them to end up being really good plays.
I don't really love anything from Houston. We can talk about Kevin Porter Jr. I do like the over prop, crazy enough, 22.5 on Jalen Green, just because with Wood and Gordon off this year, he's got a 28% usage rate. He's got 28% usage rate this month. He's crushing over the last he's attempted 53s over his last 4 games. So I think you're at a point now where Jalen Green is just going to start shooting and they're going to, and Silas is going to give him as many minutes as he can, and it makes no difference. And they're facing Sacramento again in what should be another close, high-scoring game. But Kevin Porter is the one guy I think, just given the minutes and the overall ability to get those peripherals, which Jalen Green doesn't really have outside of scoring, it's probably the only reason why he's getting the ownership.
Yeah, and so I want to mention one other thing with Sacramento because Arkathelza in chat said that on this particular slate you probably need like 50 from Davion Mitchell at 8K. I agree with that, but the reason that it's not crazy is that he's a point per minute guy on average, playing 40 minutes, going up against Houston. Like if you actually stop and think about what 50 fantasy points is for someone that could conceivably play 40 minutes, you're talking about, like 1.25 DraftKings points per minute. That's better than average, but you expect him to do better than average. So like, yes, it's a game that you're not expecting from him, and that's why he's not a priority, but it's not that far-fetched for him to go and get 50 here, given the number of minutes he plays. As far as the Houston side, the Şengün news is, I think, absolutely massive. because not only does it open up minutes for what I assume would be Garuba and Fernando like we got last game, but it also opens up usage for guys like Kevin Porter Jr. and Jalen Green, because if you're just simply replacing most of Christian Wood's minutes with Şengün, it's not really a bump for those guys because Şengün's a similar usage guy. He can do some playmaking. He can do everything that Christian Wood does. But if you're essentially replacing Christian Wood with Garuba and Fernando, those are lower usage guys where Kevin Porter Jr. and Jalen Green are going to have to do more. So, I think they're both playable if Şengün is in, but I think they look a lot better if Şengün is out.
For sure. That's a good way to look at it. I don't know if there's any point of playing Şengün in this unless he's 100%. I mean, there isn't. So hopefully we'll get that news sooner than later. It's an 8:00 game. I think we should know. Let's keep going though with what's the next one up? Making sure. Okay, Clippers and Milwaukee. This one got crazy. Larry, yeah, I've heard about that worst roommate ever. I keep seeing it on Netflix. I've been thinking about checking it out, but they just keep making so many of the same things that I feel like I've probably seen those stories. Did you see that? Did you see that on Netflix, Adam?
I've seen it pop up. It keeps coming up on my recommended.
Yeah, like they really want us to watch it.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's one of those where I haven't watched it yet because it shows up. It's like, oh, because you watched this show on serial killers, blah blah blah, and I'm like, yeah, but I'd rather just go watch another documentary on serial killers. I don't care about bad roommates. I don't have a roommate. I hopefully will never have a roommate. I want to just go watch people get murdered.
I think these are serial killer roommate.
No, I don't think it's serial
not all
killers.
of them, but
I think it's shitty roommates, but it's not like you're not going to be like, oh, this person was Jeffrey Dahmer's roommate, and that's how we're going to tell the story.
Oh, right. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe some.
I would rather just go watch, whatever. They have so many documentaries on, whether it's the Times Square killer, who I hadn't even heard of until I watched that. Whether it's, any of the million California serial killers. I'd rather just go watch another documentary on serial killers than some shitty roommate that somebody found on Craigslist that I hopefully will never experience in my life.
But you do realize it's not just roommates who leave their laundry out, right?
Yeah, it's crazy people that end up being their roommates. It's still entertaining, but I would rather see the really sick people than the.
Yeah, you want Terry McBride level shit.
Yeah. I want dead bodies with dogs and cats eating it. I don't just want dead bodies.
Right. You want them talking about the stench that was smelt down the hallways. Yeah, I got you. Okay.
Terry says Jeffrey was really odd as a roommate, kept mostly to himself, but he had the best leftovers in the fridge.
I say, Terry.
You know how I found out who Jeffrey Dahmer was?
How?
My 8th grade algebra teacher used to, and I love the guy. He died when I was in high school, but he was he was a really cool teacher. But he would tell us occasionally that the person he looked up to most as a kid was Jeffrey Dahmer. And none of us knew who Jeffrey Dahmer was until we went home and looked up who Jeffrey Dahmer was. Oh, and that's how I found out who Jeffrey Dahmer was.
I just remember, I thought you were going to say he told a joke. What kind of shampoo does Jeffrey Dahmer use?
No.
Head and Shoulders? No. Stupid joke, but I thought that'd be good for an 8th grade teacher.
Yeah, no. He's I used to idolize Jeffrey Dahmer. Who the hell is that? And then we'd look and be that's kind of weird. He also loved Montreal, which didn't make a lot of sense to us until now that I'm older. I've heard how great Montreal strip clubs and stuff are. It makes a lot more sense.
Oh, this guy was just a sleazeball.
Oh yeah, but he was cool.
I mean, yeah, I think he'd be a fun 8th grade teacher.
Somebody said he'd be blacklisted today. Yeah, that dude would not have a job today.
No. Actually, that's not really the stuff they care about these days.
Yeah.
Uzi, KPJ, Brandon Clark, so KPJ and Brandon Clark, I'm assuming DraftKings, or Jalen Green and Trey Lyles, first one.
0 to Akeem. He didn't try to bang any of us as far as I know. Maybe I just wasn't good looking enough in 8th grade. KPJ or Brandon Clark.
Don't do that.
KPJ, Brandon Clark versus Jalen Green, Trey Lyles. KPJ, Brandon Clark. But this is still dependent on Şengün. If Şengün's in, I kind of think you probably just can find better 2v2s anyway.
Okay. And then D-Fick with the super chat, getting a ton of coffee. He has to be super risky, right? Well, Adam, so. I'm glad he asked because we're on that game right now. Let's talk about the Clippers and the Milwaukee Bucks. I guess I have to go through all of this. All right, Clippers without Reggie Jackson, Marcus Morris, Paul George, Nick Batum, and then on the other side, the Bucks without Giannis, Middleton, Drew Holiday, and Brook Lopez. So let's just tackle this one, starting with the Clippers against Milwaukee. Both teams on a back-to-back tonight too.
Yeah, I mean, this game has, well, more than 16 total players, but on the Clipper side, you only have 8. And so, yeah, I don't think Coffee is risky because the minutes have to go somewhere. The active bodies for the Clippers are Terrence Mann, Hartenstein, Zubats, Kennard, Coffee, Covington, Moon, Hood. 3, 4, yeah, so 8. I think that this is another one where like it's difficult to get any sort of decent sample on like what you can really expect point per minute wise, because we just haven't seen all of these guys be out at once. But when you think about what you know about the players, like Terrence Mann, Luke Kennard are likely to have the ball in their hands the most. They're likely to see a nice bump in usage. They're likely to see a nice bump in assist percentage. Kennard's only 3,800. I think he's one of the best values on the slate. Mann is 5,400. So not quite the same level of value, but still likely to play 34 to 36 minutes, probably average about a fantasy point per minute. Still looks fantastic. Amir Coffey at 3,700 hasn't been in the rotation recently, but that doesn't matter when you take out 4 of the guys ahead of him. He's likely to play a lot of minutes. And I think you can actually almost feel more comfortable in his minutes because the Clippers aren't going to do something like there's a non-zero chance that with guys like Terrence Mann or even Luke Kennard that are like actual rotation players, the Clippers say like, okay, cool, you hit 24 minutes, like you're done. They're not going to do that with Amir Coffey because they don't give a shit. He's not playing in the postseason. There's no reason not to just let him play every single minute tonight. So I think I wouldn't be surprised at all if Coffey leads the team in minutes. He's 3,700. He looks like a great value. Robert Covington looks like a pretty good value. He's actually been really productive with the Clippers. 1.02 DraftKings points per minute, 1.07 FanDuel points per minute. I don't expect those numbers to continue long term, but he is playing tonight with essentially nobody else. He's likely to give you around 30 minutes, I would think, at 5K on FanDuel, 4,300 on DraftKings. You have the centers with Zubats and Hartenstein. I'm assuming they're not going to play next to each other, at least for more than a couple of minutes, maybe. But they both look like decent options, a little bit riskier just because you can't project quite as many minutes for them.
All right. Well, the Bucks, it's another wild situation here where you have no Giannis or Middleton or Holiday or Brook Lopez, who had been seeing some additional minutes as well. Jordan Nwora and Bobby Portis, 2 interesting spots here. Nwora has actually played almost 300 minutes without Middleton, Holiday, and Giannis this year, 27% usage rate, 0.91 DraftKings points per minute. I mean, at this point, Bobby Portis is 1.11 fantasy points per minute with what's his usage? 28%. I mean, I think this is pretty straightforward because I get what you're saying with the Clippers. I 100% understand where the ownership is coming from. But like with Milwaukee, there's still some good players that are going to be playing. And I think Nwora, at least from a fantasy standpoint, has proven that when he gets these opportunities, he's pretty good as well. And he's minimum salary. So break down the Bucks for us.
Yeah. So the Bucks are a little bit trickier to talk about right now, just because I don't have as good a feel for what their starting lineup is going to be. With the Clippers, there's only 8 guys to choose from. And I feel relatively confident in what the starting lineup is. For Milwaukee, I think it's a little bit more difficult. Like I assume Bobby Portis is starting. If Bobby Portis starts, I would expect him to play 28 to 30 minutes. He should get a ton of usage, a ton of production. He's power forward eligible, which is nice. 6,300 on DraftKings looks good. 5K on FanDuel is an absolute misprice. Be concerned if Bobby Portis does not start, because to me, that would signal that he's probably just going to get some backup run. He's an actual part of their rotation, and they kind of give him, like not a rest game, obviously, but not a ton of minutes. But assuming Portis starts, he looks fantastic to me, regardless of site, more so on FanDuel. Jordan Nwora, if he starts at 3K flat, is one of the best values on the slate, if not the best. We know that without Giannis, Middleton, Drew, he's going to take on a big role usage-wise, probably lead the team in usage outside of Portis. He looks great. If he comes off the bench, he's still playable, but he's a lot riskier because you still have Wesley Matthews, Wigginton, Carter, Thanasis, George Hill. Like there's a lot of guys that potentially can cut into those minutes. And given how many good value options there are on this slate, if you only get like 22 minutes off the bench from Wara, he's probably not really going to be somebody you want. So still playable off the bench, but a lot riskier. If he starts, very, very clearly one of the best options. Grayson Allen's 3,600 on FanDuel. He should see increased usage. 4,200 on DraftKings looks fine, but I think looks a little bit better on FanDuel. Connaughton, Ibaka, George Hill, if he starts, all look okay. Yeah, so I kind of just the starting lineup is still a big question. Like if Portis comes off the bench, I'm not that interested in going there. If Wara comes off the bench, you still can, but I'd be concerned. Same goes for Grayson Allen. My guess at the starting lineup is Portis at center, Connaughton, Allen, Hill, Wara would be my guess, but I'm just not confident in that at all.
All right. Well, we just got news that Pokusevski's out for OKC.
So are they forfeiting? Like,
well, they just signed Jalen Horde to a 10-day. I'm assuming that he's going to be active.
Yeah, it looks like he is.
Yeah. Oh man, what a shit team. Well, let's.
Oh, and actually, so I misspoke in Milwaukee. Here's the other reason I'm not sure what their starting lineup looks like. Wesley Matthews has been starting. I don't understand why Wesley Matthews would even play today, given that he's like 34. But if he's active, like I assume he just starts and plays like 24 minutes or something. So I don't know if that would be in place of Hill, if it would be in place of Wara, if it would be in place of Allen. I don't really know. But it's another team, I guess, where the easiest way to view it right now is similar to like I was saying with Memphis, where know who produces really well on a point per minute basis. Bobby Portis, Jordan Wara are I think the top two guys. Without everyone else, Allen and Connaughton certainly look pretty good as well. So does Ibaka. So just, kind of knowing who the guys that actually produce fantasy points are is useful. And then you can just react once you find the starting lineup.
Daily Sam had a super chat. At what point do we say screw it and click buttons? Well, I mean,
every slate.
What'd you say?
Every slate.
And we have one more. Mike, out of the big three on FanDuel, James, Doncic, Jokic, which two would you lean more on for cash and small single entry tournaments?
Doncic and Jokic, because I have absolutely no idea how healthy LeBron James is.
I have no idea. It was like the news today. He's hopeful to play, and Anthony Davis plans to play. I mean,
yeah.
Who the hell knows?
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing that really concerns me. If this were mid-season, I'd feel really comfortable saying that if LeBron plays, he feels fine. The Lakers need to win out, essentially. So I don't think you can read it that way. I think that in and we'll talk about this more when we get to the Lakers. I think in tournaments, taking a risk on Davis/LeBron makes some sense because they could be, 95% healthy and play really well. But in cash, like, what you're getting from Luka, what you're getting from Jokic. You have absolutely no idea what you're getting from LeBron.
Correct. Let's talk about
not to mention Luka and Jokic just produce better too.
Detroit and OKC. Well, we'll finish on time, Ryan, because we'll get there. We'll get there. Detroit, no, God, dude, everybody's out today. Olynyk's out. Bagley got hurt on that dunk attempt that Embiid fouled him on. And who else is out? Corey Joseph's out as well. So let's dig into it, man. Isaiah Stewart. I mean, the front court definitely thins out with Kelly Olynyk and no Marvin Bagley. So it leaves you with guys like Livers and Stewart and Braxton Key, who only played like 16 minutes yesterday. Do you think we're looking at any elite plays from Detroit tonight, specifically in the front court?
Isaiah Livers, I'm assuming he's going to start. He's 3K flat. Getting that can't be right. Getting 3% ownership. I guess we're not assuming he's going to start, or we need to update something. I don't know. Isaiah Livers at 3K looks good. I like him. Obviously like him more if he starts. That would be a nice sign for his playing time. Detroit's another team where they have 10 guys that are capable of playing minutes tonight, but they're missing Jeremy Grant. They're missing Bagley. They're missing Diallo. They're missing Joseph. They're missing Olynyk. So there's a lot of production available. It's just a matter of guessing correctly where it's going to go. Sadiq Bey, I think, has a very high ceiling. He's priced a lot more favorably on FanDuel than DraftKings. Cunningham certainly has a very high ceiling as well. He's expensive, but you can still get to some of him. Isaiah Stewart potentially plays more minutes if he can avoid foul trouble because he is missing his backup in Olynyk. Killian Hayes should play more without Corey Joseph. Isaiah Livers and Braxton Key should both play a good amount. Again, my guess is that Livers is in the starting lineup. If Key's in the starting lineup, I would assume he plays more minutes than Livers. If Livers starts, I assume he plays more than Key. But I think in terms of value, Livers looks like the best guy to me here, but still getting to some Cunningham, Bay, Stewart, Hayes, all that's still fine.
All right. On the other side, so we don't have Pokusevski now. What a mess this OKC team has been. So he was getting he was pulling 13%. Hopefully we get an update soon. We certainly should. We had Roby projected pretty well today. Teo Maladon being another guy. And then you take the pogo stick off the court and it just provides you with a whole. That's the problem. Like the guys that you're getting as replacements are just still not exciting. Guys that we haven't talked about yet.
So here's the thing with OKC though. They had 8 guys. Well, they still have 8 guys, but they had 8 guys and Jeremiah Robinson Earl was limited to 16 minutes last game. So really they had 7.5. Now you replace Pokusevski with Jalen Horde. I have absolutely no idea how many minutes Jalen Horde can play or how many minutes OKC wants him to play. This could be our first, not true 6-man rotation of the year, but kind of like a 7-man rotation where, Robinson Earl plays 16, Horde plays 18, and then you just have like 6 other guys. So with Pokusevski out, I mean, you could just get so many minutes from Isaiah Roby and Olivier Sarr. Like they've been playing alongside each other already. Now you could get even more minutes. I think they look like the top 2 guys to me from OKC. Maladon's price jumped quite a bit to 6,800, but he should see plenty of usage, especially without Pokusevski. Jalen Horde is a lower usage guy than Pokusevski is. It increases playing time, I would think, for the combination of Wiggins, Krejci, and Waters. I still, at their respective salaries, don't think I want more than one because they're all like 0.7 to 0.75 fantasy point per minute guys. It's kind of hard for me to envision how 2 of Wiggins, Krejci, and Waters have tournament winning performances on this slate, but one of them certainly could. They're going to play 1 million minutes. So I think Roby and Sarr are the priorities. I think Teo is second, and then I think the Wiggins, Sarr, Krejci group is third.
Okay. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, was Horde come up from the G League? They signed him in the G League, right?
Sure.
I'm assuming. I just looked. He was playing like 23 minutes per game there. I don't imagine he can't play 25.
Yeah, so physically he probably can. It's just a matter of like, do they want him to?
Who gives a shit at this point?
Right.
I don't know. Maybe
but either way, he's also just a lower rates guy than Pokusevski.
Oh, no question. I'm not denying that at all. All right. Portland and San Antonio Spurs. Here's another fun one. These April slates are just out of control.
Yeah.
Like I don't think there's no way I get to the Awesemo Hall of Fame with all this shit going on. I can't.
I told Eric after the injury report that I had not been doing my own projections a lot recently, and then today I was like, oh, I'll do it, and then I started looking at the slate. I was like, nope, I'm gonna just go ahead and use aggregate and Alex's. I'm not spending my time trying to project this out.
It's tough, man. NBA player rankings are free though over at awesemo.com if you're looking for a little bit of help. Same with NHL player projections. And obviously Awesemo Plus, whatever you want to do at awesemo.com/join, you can get, monthly NBA. You could do all sports monthly from basketball to PGA to MMA to NASCAR to baseball coming up, hockey, everything we have out there, esports, whatever. You could do a month, a year, one sport, every sport, whatever you want to do. An express pass for single sports for less than $5 a week. All the tools that we have, all the tools we referenced that have won a lot of people a lot of money. Check them all out. Awesemo.com/join. Start small if you want, but yeah, check it out and join our premium Discord in our office hours for sure. All right. Where are we going? Portland and San Antonio. All right, let's go to the mess of the Portland Trailblazers and talk about, it's at least good that these guys have all been out for so long now that none of them really carry much value anymore.
Yeah, it feels weird having a game where we don't have to talk about 800 guys. It's
great.
Portland was what OKC is, what Memphis is, last week, the week before, but now it's just, are there guys that can show up in a lineup here and there? Sure. Like Eubanks, Williams, Greg Brown, those guys can all be
Eubanks
for
has
their
been
salaries.
good. He's just expensive.
Yeah, it's just they have plenty of bodies available. Like you have Luzada now, you have Perry. They're not shorthanded in terms of bodies; they're shorthanded in terms of talent. But prices have come up. I mean, it's just really difficult for me to point to anything from Portland and say like, oh yeah, this is the guy.
My filler arc said the sync between both of your drinking and saying fuck this Slate in your head on the same time was amazing. Yeah, I did notice we both took a sip at the same time.
I didn't notice until people said it.
Yeah, once the delay ended. It's good stuff. Thanks for the super chat, man. All right.
Slim Brody said DK Cash. Are we just jamming Jokic, Luka, snag a solid 6K guy, and then all the value? I haven't built a cash lineup, but yeah, that's exactly what I was
Sounds right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. DeJounte Murray against this Portland team. I mean, there's some legitimate blowout concerns here too, as well. The Spurs aren't even that good, and they're 15-point favorites. So they trashed. Go ahead.
Portland's another Indiana type team though, where like DeJounte Murray might only play 3 quarters and score 60 fantasy points.
Oh, yeah,
Pirtle might only play 3 quarters and score 45. I really like Murray. I really like Pirtle. They also ran a more condensed rotation recently, and I don't think that's a fluke. Last game, they only played Lonnie Walker like 13 minutes. The Spurs right now are edging out the Lakers for the 10 seed. So assuming that they want to get to the play-in game, they are incentivized to run a little bit tighter rotations, get a couple extra minutes for guys like Keldon Johnson, Devin Vassell. I think the priorities here are DeJounte Murray, number 1, Pirtle, number 2. I think Pirtle is one of the best mid-range center options.
I love him today.
I think he goes absolutely nuts for whatever minutes he's on the floor.
Phenomenal spot for Pirtle.
Yeah. And then, like Johnson, Vassell on a lot of slates would look great. Tonight, I think they just look sort of decent.
I'm with you. Yeah, Jakob Poeltl seems to be slept on. Single digit ownership today, 6,800 on DraftKings. That's a great spot for him. I mean,
it's just one of those, like, the ownership's going to be relatively low because from a roster construction standpoint, like you can build a good lineup with Poeltl, and then you can say, well, what happens if I drop Poeltl to somebody that's 4K and upgrade somewhere else? And you're going to be like, oh, that looks really good. So that's why the ownership's going to be relatively low. But Poeltl, I expect to absolutely destroy this spot for however many minutes he's on the floor.
I would certainly think that you're going to be right about that. Now you just hope that he stays on the floor for.
Yeah. Marcus Amparo said it. I was pretty sure that was the case. He said Poeltl had a massive game last time, but the blowout limited his ceiling. I was getting chased down by a Jakob Poeltl team and was like, all right, this game's a blowout. I just need him not to score like 22 points in the third quarter. And then in like 6 minutes, he scored 18 points. Yeah. And I'm like, shit, he's going to catch me. And then they took him out and I held. But he just absolutely annihilated them for whatever minutes he was out there.
I needed a certain prop in that game that didn't hit because they all played like 25, 24 minutes. But he had 16 and 9 with 6 blocks and a steal in 24 minutes.
Yeah, it was just an absurd game.
Yeah, pretty good stuff. All right, we got to speed this up because coming up next, you have the Live Before Lock show with Greg and Eric. They'll be taking you up and through lock till 7:30. So hang with them if you'd like. Minnesota and Denver. Not that this is even important, but it's kind of funny how word on Malik Beasley was that 2 days ago he wasn't even close to returning. That was the word, and now he is questionable to play today.
Sorry, I missed who you were.
So I'm saying Chris Finch said that he was not even close to returning 2 days ago, and now he's questionable. So Malik Beasley.
Oh, Beasley. Okay.
That's what I'm saying. It doesn't really matter. It's just like, again, coach speak meaning nothing.
Yeah. So as far as Minnesota goes, I think top to bottom, they're a good team to get to, but they're also not a priority here. Like Karl Anthony Towns is underpriced at 9,600. Edwards, Russell, Beverly, I think they're all a little bit underpriced. But at the same time, it's not that difficult to get from Towns to Jokic at the position or to, Murray elsewhere, at a different position. So I think they all look really good. I think it's just kind of like we were saying with Poeltl, how often do you actually land on that price tag? Same goes for Anthony Edwards. Same goes for Russell. I wouldn't play more than one of Beverly or Noel here, but $3,400 Noel certainly is appealing in tournaments too as a lower owned value guy because we have seen him getting some fourth quarter run over Beverly. A lot of that I think has been because of the score. But Noel's certainly someone that can just light it up offensively and make it difficult to take him off the floor. So I think he's another really volatile, cheap option that, right now is only projected for 1% ownership on DraftKings.
Speaking of low ownership, outside of Nikola Jokic, who we don't really need to talk, there's so much value in Nikola Jokic. Just play the guy. On a 10-game slate, you're getting almost 30% from him at 12,500. Simple as that, right? But unless you want to add something to it, we don't have a ton of time here. Actually, we have negative time. But besides that, when you're looking past Nikola Jokic for Denver, is this basically just the standard, Jokic and pretty much nothing else?
Yeah, pretty much. Jokic looks fantastic. Obviously, you're going to get to him a lot because it's really easy. Barton, Gordon, Morris, Highland, like these guys all look fine. And on other slates, they'd be kind of interesting. I think it's noteworthy that once again, we saw Highland close alongside Monte Morris. That would be really useful. Like if you're playing the 2-game, I think it's a 2-game night slate, keep that in mind. Like you can actually get a little bit more Highland than you otherwise would because he's not just splitting minutes with Monte Morris now. But on a 10-game slate where there's teams that are just missing a million guys, trying to get to Bones Highland because maybe he plays 24 minutes instead of 22 is just not at the top of my list of things to do, even though he certainly could have a good game.
All right. About to wrap this up. We are 23 likes away from 500. Would mean a lot if we got there before we go in the live before lock. If you forgot, that's okay. We forgive you. Atone for your sins, however, and hit that thumbs up. Only takes a second. And remember, Thrive Fantasy, you got the 4K NBA contest tonight and the free or the $500 free roll exclusive to Awesemo users. Use the promo code Awesemo, but it's all caps, or sorry, all lowercase, case sensitive, AWESEMO. Pelicans and Lakers. I can say on the Lakers side that if LeBron and Davis play, nothing is really appealing at all. I guess LeBron is always fine, but this is just one of those spots where you get all three of them back and you have no idea what, although Davis returned that one game and played and crushed. I remember us talking about it, but this slate just doesn't seem too appropriate for that. So New Orleans and Lakers, close us out before we flip the page over to live before live.
Yeah. So the New Orleans side, it's a really appealing matchup. Like if you get to some McCollum, some Ingram, some Joval, that's obviously fine. One of them is likely to have a good game. I think Joval's the most appealing to me at 8,100. His playing time's been up a bit lately. We once again saw Hernan Gomez not in the rotation yesterday or last game. I don't remember if it was yesterday or not. So they're all fine, but they still don't stand out in the context of the slate. As far as the Lakers go, in tournaments, I do think that James and Davis are interesting because the thing you have to keep in mind here is that the Lakers need to win. And so this isn't a situation where I think they're likely to say, like, Davis says he's feeling pretty good, we're going to limit him to 24 minutes. I think if Davis can stay on the floor, Davis is going to stay on the floor. Same for LeBron. They're not going to risk losing this game to preserve Anthony Davis's foot for the offseason. Like, that would make zero sense. Granted, most things Frank Vogel does make zero sense. But I do think that there is maybe a little bit higher ceiling on guys like LeBron and Davis today than people are giving them credit for. That said, there's a bunch of guys that I don't have to worry about their health that I can play and really like as well.
All right. Well, you guys have a great weekend. I know I will. Maybe Tyler, throw those super chats to Greg and Eric. I literally do not have time to get there. Hang around for those guys. Appreciate you guys watching. As always, follow Adam at Ship My Money DFS. Myself at Loughy_D. We'll catch you back here after the weekend. Back on the deeper dive. Peace.
What is going on, guys? The NBA season might be winding down, but it's never too late to add some new sponsors to the Live Before Lock show. So we're sponsored today by Thrive Fantasy. They're also running a free roll contest with us. So that's something you guys check out. If you guys are signing up at Thrive for the first time, use the promo code Awesemo. Get up to a $250 bonus on your first deposit. So we're going to be talking about them a little bit, especially in our post-lock show, which is going to go from 7 to 7:30 Eastern time as per usual. We also have their main contest is going to be locking 30 minutes later just to acquiesce to us. So, Eric, we've got a lot going on this slate. News is never going to stop. We just had Pokusevski ruled out. How are you feeling about tonight?
I felt better before the Pokusevski news. I thought we had kind of like found a little bit of a lull, and then that happened, and now you have to take into strong consideration all of those guys, not just Roby, not just Maledon. You kind of have to look at the rest of the board. I was writing off the rest of them. It felt good to write the rest of them off. But like legitimately, I think that there's a good chance that out of the 8 guys who play, 2 of them play 15 minutes, 17 minutes. And that makes it very, very difficult to get away from at least not just a little bit of exposure, but, you know, above average exposure for what I was expecting about 25 minutes ago. So Milwaukee Clippers, no brainer. Memphis, no brainer. But everything else, we got to kind of look at the entire board now again.
Nothing better than when you're trying to find out whether those random 10-day contract guys are available to play or not. We're like, oh, is Jalen Horde going to play minutes or not today? I guess he has to now because that's kind of what happens at this point in the season. It was the same thing we had the other day with Reggie Perry. And that's just going to be one of those things. And it's not like anybody's going to care enough to report on it. We'll find out whether Jalen Horder is playing or not in like the second quarter.
I was going to say, that was the Reggie Perry situation. We were on Reggie Perry watch the other night, 0 minutes. That felt good. My thing is like Jalen Horde could be somebody that literally they signed to a 10-day contract. I wish I got paid $40,000 to sit on a bench. Like there's a legitimate chance that he doesn't play a minute, but I think it's more likely than not he gets signed to this 10-day. They're trying to lose games. I put him in for 16 minutes, but that is still abnormally low compared to the 32, 33 I was giving to Pokusevski. So this got a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, there are a lot of moving pieces on the slate, and there's going to be more injury news to come. So this is the total list of players that are officially listed as questionable for today. LeBron James, Şengün, Anthony Davis, Goga Bitadze, O'Shea Brissett, Isaiah Jackson, JaMychal Green, Malik Beasley. Those are the guys that actually matter right now that are officially listed as questionable. We did just get, by the way, Isaiah Jackson ruled in. Goga Bitadze ruled in. O'Shea Brissett ruled in.
Write them off.
This is why you read off some of those things, because sometimes you just do it and the teams will cooperate and they'll just say, oh, you need this news? Here it is. We didn't know you were waiting on it. So we've got the Pacers news. I also want to ask you before we just hit on this Pacers situation, are you assuming LeBron and Anthony Davis play? I am. I know that they're officially listed as questionable, but if they don't play today, the Lakers' season is kind of in shambles.
Yeah, it's over is probably the right way of looking at it. They need to get a 10 seed to even be eligible for the play-in game. Then they'll need to win 2 games to get into the playoffs. That would be one of the more brutal backdoor beats for anybody who, like yourself, like me, like anybody else who has Lakers to not make the playoffs odds or that has bet that. I'm looking at LeBron right now as a guy that is one of the best tournament plays on the slate, especially when you look at the boom bust tool, the most positively leveraged player by an absolute mile. Part of that has to do with his small forward eligibility. He fills a positional need where we have punts pretty much absolutely everywhere, all over the board. Lots of shooting guard / small forward guys that we can get to, but really only him as a pay up there that I have any interest in getting to. I mean, Anthony Edwards isn't nearly quite labeled as a pay up option. So with LeBron James here, if he's good to go, you got to assume he's a full go. Same thing with Anthony Davis. I think both of them have to be considered for tournaments as guys that you want to get to.
I don't think I have Anthony Davis for 26 minutes. I think he's going to play, but somewhat limited. He hasn't played in forever. But LeBron, I expect to be full workload. We'll see if we get any other news later. We do have some super chats right now. First from Daily Sam. What is the highest entry fee you've ever paid for a tournament? So last year,
got a ticket.
Last year, DraftKings had an NBA, I think it was a Millie Maker that was, I don't remember the exact number. It was maybe like a $5,200 buy-in or 53. It was somewhere around there. I had one entry into that, and that was my highest. I don't remember. It was around that number though.
So the two that come to my mind, I played in the 4-4-4-4 one time on DK that I got a ticket to, and then The biggest tournament, the most entry fees I've ever had in one day was on FanDuel. I was at a birthday party in Palm Springs, and I won 5 tickets in a baseball queue in October to get all 3K tickets to FanDuel for their Millie Maker that they had for football. And it was like a Stephon Diggs with the Vikings chalk week. And I completely faded him. It was his best game of the entire season. I cashed 0 of those tickets. So that was the most painful day of DFS I've ever had.
Yeah, well, there's also
sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit.
Yeah, that was
Fuck you, Tyler.
Just shit. I think it was for Eric. I did not cash in the NBA Millie Maker last year. I'm pretty sure in the online tournament where they had that you could just get tickets into, I played 150 in the FanDuel one, which was $150 buy-in a few years ago. But yeah, I'm whatever that Millie Maker was for NBA last year. That was my highest entry fee. GMac84 sent us a super chat. Cunningham or Kevin Porter Jr. for a single entry on FanDuel.
Let's see. Where is that one? Did I miss it? Going all the way back to
Cade Cunningham or Kevin Porter Jr. is the question.
Cade Cunningham for sure for me. It's so easy to get up to him. I mean, that's the thing. And Kevin Porter Jr. is fine, but 9K for Cade Cunningham. Then on FanDuel, it's not that hard for me to get up to him. And with no Jeremy Grant and no Marvin Bagley, I mean, this could be an absolute, I'm going out and trying to win a rookie of the year tonight kind of a game. He gets to play a completely defunct OKC team. Everything kind of points me in the direction of Cade Cunningham as a great tournament play on this slate.
Yeah. And I mean, for a lot of the season, we've seen, or at least as of late, Kevin Porter Jr. has been like 5,600, 5,900, and Cunningham's regularly been, $1,500 or so more expensive. Porter's price has gone up. I understand that's largely a product of Christian Wood being out and the increased production going there, but Cade's a better fantasy producer. Cade all day. Yep. We have another super chat here from Jake Lewis. 4 teams to fade on the FanDuel main slate.
4 teams. All right. Well, this should actually be pretty easy when you look at it.
Let's see.
Orlando
teams,
Indiana, Phoenix. Yeah, I'm probably going to go Phoenix because I really don't have interest in a full strength Phoenix team anymore. And Portland.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what the best way is to sort some of these teams in Fantasy Cruncher just to see which team I have the least amount of exposure to. Over on, I think Orlando's a pretty shitty team to target today.
Yep. That was the first one I listed.
Now that we've got all the Pacers guys in, I think that's a pretty shitty team.
That was the second one I listed.
So that's going to be another one for me. Sacramento, no. Houston, no. I think Phoenix. I know you mentioned Phoenix. That's a reasonable one that I don't have very much exposure to. Clippers and Bucks, we need exposure there. Pistons, yes. Thunder, yes.
And Portland
kind of
Portland
is default.
Portland has to be 4.
Yeah. So those would be my 4 then.
Yep. We have the exact same 4.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I was just clicking on the teams individually in Fantasy Cruncher and just seeing all right, who am I not really getting exposure to? And it was those 4 teams. Another super chat here. The regular question from our guy, Michael McKinney. Who are our 2 favorite pay up options and 3 favorite value plays today for cash games on FanDuel?
All right. So FanDuel, Blonka Doncic autoplay, Nikola Jokic autoplay. I think those 2 are pretty much auto plays for me in cash. So did he say 3 spend ups?
He wanted 2 spend ups and 3 value plays.
All right.
So I totally agree with you on those spend up options. 1 value, like Bobby Portis, another easy one for me.
Yep.
5K.
Brandon Clark, if he's starting, you just play him. I think you play him regardless because he's going to be really crazy popular in cash.
If he comes off the bench, I get concerned he doesn't play minutes today.
Right. And then I would probably find a way to swap off. But I mean, just having him in your lineup to start and then reacting as the news comes out, I think is probably a prudent play. You should be able to know what to do with him. You have Clippers, Milwaukee, just turn it into anything from that game. I mean, that's the thing about late swap on this one. I mean, the best spots, we're going to have no Şengün by the time we have Memphis, the Clippers, and Milwaukee going. So just have a ton. As soon as I say that, Alperen Şengün ruled out. Like literally
right.
as soon as I say that.
So let's finish answering this question, then we'll figure out what we're doing with the Houston Rockets. So Portis is one of those value plays for me.
Yep. And Amir Coffey is my last one, my third.
So you went with Portis,
Clark, Portis, and Coffey.
There are so many value plays that I think are really strong. It's pretty hard to find who the three favorite ones are. Yeah, I agree with Coffey. I think Kennard's another one that's a pretty strong consideration for me. Jordan Nwora, another one. There's a whole bunch of ways you could go here, but must-haves in cash games for sure. Bobby Portis, Nikola Jokic, Luka Doncic. I agree, Brandon Clark as well. Amir Coffey probably should be in there. I keep listing off names. I'll build his entire lineup for him. But if you look at the ownership projections, you'll get a pretty good feel for who the top plays are and who people are going to, and they're all justified today. There are so many spots where we just have these guys who it's like, hey, you know who we're rolling out today? Our 7 highest minutes per game guys, and then it's just whoever else is up.
Not only that, OKC guys have to be like in consideration, and I'm updating everything now. Like you have to at least consider landing on some of these guys because of pure minutes over trying to embrace anybody who's not in the starting lineup of that Clipper spot. But once again, OKC locks at 8 p.m. Eastern time. All the best teams play at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So like, there's no way about it. Like I'm not going to really know who I'm rostering until I see all of those starting lineups. So it's going to be another hour probably until I really know.
All right. So I am in the process of taking Şengün out of my player pool. I see we have more super chats. We'll hit on them in a second. But first, we need to figure out what we're doing with the Houston Rockets here because there's no Şengün in the lineup. And, you know, if you look at the minutes from last game, I don't know that there's that much to really like from this situation because they played Kenyon Martin Jr. some minutes. They played Garuba some minutes. They played Bruno Fernando minutes. And so while it wouldn't be shocking if any of those individual guys have upside, I can't project them nearly as well as I'm projecting some of these other value plays on the slate because I think last game's minutes should be somewhat of a guideline. We got 22 minutes out of Bruno Fernando, 24 from KJ Martin. We got 25 from Usman Garuba. Those are really not great amounts of minutes relative to some of the other options we have to go to today.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's really looking at the two guys that are going to benefit most. Kevin Porter Jr., Jalen Green. They have to be guys you consider. With Dennis Schroeder, Eric Gordon, Christian Wood, Alperen Şengün off the floor, it's weird seeing something like, oh, Bruno Fernando's the leader in usage, 26.6%. But it's a 75-minute sample, so it's so hard in late season DFS. You have to make a lot of really educated guesses as far as what you think those fantasy point minute rates are going to be. One of the nice things about the update on Fantasy Cruncher is being able to just kind of see exactly what that projected rate is based on your projection as you're tweaking with stuff, as you're importing some of your projections. It makes it a little bit more fascinating for me to just kind of see exactly what that number might turn out at. Like Bruno Fernando, he's not going to be starting. I'm not going to project him over 24 minutes. And like, for me, that just falls by the wayside on a slate where whoever starts out of the Clippers, Milwaukee, OKC with 6, maybe 6.5 dudes technically that are playing in that game. I mean, there's just so much more interesting spots to go to in terms of my value. Do you want to land on maybe like a completely unknown Josh Christopher? Can he go out and set it on fire? Sure. But yeah, on a site like FanDuel, he's priced up to 4,500 now. You have some of these guys where it's just like, they're going to be $1,000 away from some of these cheapies that just give me access to Jokic and Doncic and Murray all in the same lineup. Going to be very hard to pass that over even on FanDuel today.
Yeah, this is if Şengün played, obviously I would have liked him.
Same.
A lot of guys out.
Yeah, he was the second most positively leveraged player we had in the boom bust tool for a long time today. And now he's just off the board.
So I agree with you. Kevin Porter Jr. becomes my favorite play from this team, but he's also kind of priced up on FanDuel and DraftKings at this point. And see the current ownership projections on Porter. He's projected for 14% ownership on FanDuel. On DraftKings, he's projected also for 15% ownership. That number probably goes up to 20% or so on both sites. Probably about reasonable to me. That's where I imagine I'll have like 15 to 20% of Kevin Porter Jr. once I update everything. Do you think you'll be wildly different than that number?
No, probably not. I mean, again, it's so easy to access guys that project for 55 in Murray and 59, 60 for Doncic. Like for me, using up a guard spot on him is an opportunity cost thing where there are so many good punts at shooting guard, small forward across the board. Now on FanDuel, you can play him at small forward. I think there's some utility to doing something like that, but on the whole, like he just doesn't look like, even he's completely different than even what we had on Wednesday. It was an 11-game slate. He made a fantastic play on that slate, and he's going to make a good play here. Don't get me wrong, but when you have guys like Murray, Jokic, and Doncic that are so easy to get to on a site like FanDuel now, even that small forward utility isn't as useful as what it was 2 days ago.
Yep, totally agree. And by the way, my lineups today, stars and scrubs.
Oh,
across
to an egregious amount. And like, for me, I'm kind of trying to force feed certain guys into my lineups, and we'll get to them. Like a guy like Porzingis, where he's at least a 1.33 fantasy point per minute producer. He's 9K on DK. Do I think he ends up optimal a number of the times? No. Same thing with Cade Cunningham, but the huge difference is that they're just lesser owned guys compared to those top tier dudes. So if I'm going to land on guys and play the I hope Jokic or Doncic fails in a number of lineups, which I personally am not, because I'm going to have tons of them as it is, I'm going to try to get onto more guys like that fill in my 150 lineups. But overall, how can you possibly prioritize them when they're going to project out 10, 15 points less than Jokic, Doncic specifically?
Yeah, and just not hard to get to those guys today.
Easy as hell.
Unlimited value. Catch up on our super chats here, then we'll round up the guard position to say who our highest priorities are right now. First, Andrew Kang. Sup, guys? FanDuel, Cunningham and Brooks, or Davion Mitchell and Ant Edwards tournament play? Thanks. I prefer Cunningham and Brooks.
Cunningham and Brooks for me.
Next question here from our guy, Teddy Wayman. Mitchell or Van Vliet in single entry FanDuel GPP? All right. Mitchell or Van Vliet? It is so crazy. Imagine a month ago, somebody asked you Fred Van Vliet or Davion Mitchell.
Yeah, you'd think it was Donovan Mitchell at that point in time. 7,300. I mean, I project out Davion Mitchell. He's pretty popular. I mean, Fred Van Vliet, this whole Toronto team, part of why I'm going to just say Davion Mitchell is it gives me access to just have more roster spots to move around what I need to at 8 p.m. Eastern time. I'm just not going to be high on anybody from those first two games outside of Porzingis and Luka, simply because and a little bit of Pascal Siakam, because we do have 55, 60 point ceiling from him. But I don't really see any value that I want to get to, period, until I have all the facts. So I'm playing zero, and I mean zero, even in 190 lineups that I have on DK today, playing zero plays that are value from the first three games.
7,300 to me is a broken price tag for Fred Van Vliet, though. Even though he hasn't played quite as well as of late, I just strongly prefer him to Davion Mitchell, especially when you consider just the ownership gap between them. Fred Van Vliet projected for a third of the ownership of Davion Mitchell, the exact same price, and I have Fred Van Vliet projected for 2 more fantasy points.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to take the Fred Van Vliet.
Yeah, and that's fine. I was going to say Fred Van Vliet. I was kind of talking about other plays that I was going through on all of them, not just the 1v1. I prefer Mitchell purely because the swapping utility. But if you're talking about overall play, Fred Van Vliet is half the ownership as it stands right now. I have no problem if you want to go there. I'm still picking Mitchell.
Next super chat from Nelson Resto. Max, Clippers, Grizzlies, Thunder, Bucks in one lineup. Well, if you're playing all 4 of them, it's hard to get like.
I always wanted to play a 20-player lineup on DraftKings.
Today would not be a bad day for that. There should be some sort of alternate gameplay for because how many players do you think legitimately are good value points per dollar today?
I mean, I can tell you right off the bat. I can tell you how many I project for the quote unquote threshold of 6x. And it fills up the whole first page that I'm staring at. Yep. My entire first page on Fantasy Cruncher is all guys 6x. Starts with Rodney freaking Hood, Serge Ibaka, Terrence Mann, Bobby Portis, Isaiah Roby, Vit Krejci, Garrison Matthews, Anthony Melton, Garuba. I mean, we're talking 35, 40 guys that project, 6x above their salary, just flat out in terms of value. It's ridiculous. I can't remember a slate quite like this one. I know I've had these before. I know we've all had these before, but this one is like exceptionally ridiculous.
So for me, I think, for a slate this size, no more than 3 in any one lineup. I'm not
playing any team more than 3 except for, and now this is where you got to at least like talk about the game theory of how do you get different from everybody else playing these. We're on shows right now, but I would definitely try to incorporate some, like if I get 2 players from Clippers, I get at least 2, maybe 3 from Milwaukee on each one of these. I think there's some viability to a game stack in a couple of these where you play like 4 Milwaukee players with 2 Clippers or 4 OKC guys with 2 Pistons. Like, I can see some utility to that, but considering I'm on this show, I find it unlikely that one of those is going to fall through the cracks. But if you have an actual competitive game, which both of those are projected to be, they're 3-point spreads, 4-point spreads, I have no problem. We saw it happen 2 nights ago with the Houston Portland ridiculous, or it was OKC and Portland, where Jokic was the only piece in the winning lineup for everything, and it just became an absolute game stack around it. Absolutely viable on a slate like this to try to incorporate some of that, but because what we're doing right now, I'm capping it at 3 and moving on.
We just got a super chat from Krenbaltis. He asked the exact same question we already got before, which is Fred VanVleet or Davion Mitchell. So 2 separate super chats with the same question.
Beautiful.
Still Fred VanVleet for me. Kren, if you have another question, throw that into the YouTube chat, because I feel bad that we already hit on that. Super chat here from My Filler Arc. I feel like Ingram will try his best to destroy the Lakers today at their home. Should I jump off people like Anthony Edwards for him? So,
No.
you know, he's going to try his best because this game has playoff implications. So I think he's probably going to be pretty motivated as is. Ingram versus Anthony Edwards. Who do I prefer?
I have like 8% Brandon Ingram on DK. I'm a little bit, what is that, below the field as it stands right now. Again, this is something where I think there's going to be some utility to finding 1 or 2 spots to get some of these 7,400 to 9K guys kind of thrown into lineups. I just don't really see a huge difference between him, Jaylen Brown, Scotty Barnes. Oh, I do see a difference between Scotty Barnes, Anthony Edwards. I mean, there's a number of ways that you can kind of mix these guys in, but on the whole, I'm not going to say Brandon Ingram needs to be a priority play, because the priorities need to be the top end guys and the cheapies. Like, this is a stars and scrubs to the max slate. If you fall on Brandon Ingram in one tournament lineup, I have no problem with that.
Yeah, I prefer Ingram to Edwards. I haven't projected better. And well, the narrative he put in, while I don't think that individual logic is accurate, I think the stakes of this game are so high that we probably will just see the guys who are the core players for the Pelicans play extended minutes anyway. That in itself, like, I don't think Ingram's going to come out and be like, oh my God, I have to shoot 70% from 3 and somehow make that happen. But I think it's reasonable to project him for a couple extra minutes because of this, because of the stakes of this game. Super chat from Jake Lindland. Jaylen Brown or Kevin Porter Jr. DK 3-entry max. That is now Kevin Porter Jr. for me.
Yeah, it's going to probably be for me now too. I mean, Jaylen Brown, 8K for him. He's a 1.15 fantasy producer, and Kevin Porter Jr. has all the opportunity. One of the caveats, I should have thrown this in when we were answering the question about Kevin Porter Jr., was I expected Şengün to play. Not that I had some huge crazy take on it. I knew we'd have plenty of time, but I thought that there was a chance he was going to be in there, and that was going to be a definite hit. Kevin Porter Jr. is going to produce over that, and I haven't projected for more minutes, and he doesn't have to contend with a Jason Tatum in his lineup, and he's going to be able to contribute with the ball in his hands constantly. Kevin Porter Jr. a little bit cheaper too, kind of checks all the boxes for somebody to get to a little bit more of.
We just got the starting lineup for the Los Angeles Clippers. It is not anything unexpected. Terrence Mann, Amir Coffey, Luke Kennard, Robert Covington, Ivica Zubac. What do you make of that starting 5?
Yeah, it's what we expected. I think you and me and anybody that was thinking about that out loud, that would make the most sense what they did. I will say, you know, it's not like you would expect a Xavier Moon to come in and be a starter. So that shouldn't change anything you're doing there. It shouldn't change any kind of take that you have as far as getting to any more of these or less of these bench guys. I still think Isaiah Hartenstein is viable as a tournament play at 5,100. I definitely am not going to be jamming him the way that I was thinking a little bit earlier when this news first broke, just because of how many guys there are beneath him. But the best thing about a guy like this is that he's a phenomenal fantasy point per minute producer. And he averages north of 1.2 without Paul George, without Reggie Jackson on the floor this year. He's 1.17 across all situations. So like, I still want to get to him. Don't let him not starting affect anything that you're doing.
Yep. He's in play, but he's far from a core play for me.
Far.
Yeah. I guess if I had to say one thing, what is the most recent ownership update? Let's see what we have here. We got one from 21 seconds ago. We have Coffee right now projected for 28% ownership on DK. Luke Kennard is sub 20%. Given that ownership split, I don't think there's a massive difference between Amir Coffey and Luke Kennard. I think if you're looking for a reasonable pivot, it makes sense to go to Kennard over Coffee in some single entry lineups or something like that. Because once again, I think they're very similar and there's a massive ownership gap between them.
Yeah, kind of a surprise. Oh, 6%. That's pretty negligible on something like
8%.
This. Yeah, but Amir Coffey also, with Paul George back, he's not really a foundational piece. He's been out of the rotation the last 2 games. Luke Kennard is a piece of this team going forward into the playoffs. So I want to at least have a little bit of that in the back of my mind where, you're not trying to go out and win this game. Nobody really cares. Are you really going to push a guy who's a part of your team for the playoffs? Luke Kennard needs to be that. Amir Coffey does not. I know that Luke Kennard and him are about identical fantasy point per minute producers, 0.77 to 0.72. So, sure, play a little bit of the ownership game, but I also think Amir Coffey plays more minutes straight up.
All right, we've got some super chats here. First, Jordan Lockhart, love y'all. Let's all tie for first. Well, maybe not all of us. Maybe just us in the chat here. Once we get everybody in, then it becomes one of those showdown slates where I come in first and lose money. So tie for first with a reasonable number of people. Super chat from Greg Smith. Hey, Eric and Greg. For a single entry on Yahoo for the baller, what center are we focusing on the most for one lineup? And would you add another in utility? By the way, Greg, I almost took down my second GPP, came in fourth. First, congratulations. Second, who is the best center option over on Yahoo today? Nikola Jokic by a mile.
Yeah, Jokic by a mile, but Isaiah Hartenstein just got a little bit more interesting. Ivica Zubac's unlikely to play full minutes Friday per Coach Lou. How you doing, Mr. Hartenstein?
All right, so I wasn't expecting Zubac to play all that much anyway, though, because it's not like he's playing all that many minutes lately for the most part.
Yeah, but that just makes it seem like he's got those training wheels on. He played 32 last time out against Chicago.
It was also an overtime game, though.
Yeah, I know. 27. That's pretty noticeable.
Yeah. I have a 24-24. That's probably how I'll leave it.
I am going to shift it to 20-28, and I'm going to get to a lot more Hartenstein.
Yeah. I mean, he's not a bad guy to take GPP shots on at all. But I don't think, because also if you look at recent games, all right, so 2 games ago, I'm going to pull up the box score. Last game, went to overtime as competitive game, but look like 2 games ago, Zubac's played 17 minutes. Hartenstein played 25 in that game.
He closed too.
Yeah. As is, this is kind of how the rotation's been going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what it's been, but it seems like you don't have to guess at it this time. Like, I feel like I've been guessing at it, but there's also been a little bit of an ownership decrease by having to guess at it. It was nice that he got priced up. I didn't have to play him against Chicago, but man, we had been playing him pretty much every single slate, and he had been just smashing. The thing about a guy like this is that he's just a phenomenal fantasy point per minute producer. I mean, you look at Awesemo, their projection on his fantasy rate is north of 1.3, 1.17 on the season. We talked about him in bulk there already. I just think he's another guy that I want to just kind of be over the field on, no doubt about it.
Right. Just because this is the way that this show is going and the way the slate is going, Eric, I want to ask you for your crunches right now, just what are the guards you have the most exposure to? For me, it's DeAnthony Melton, Luka Doncic, Luke Kennard, and Amir Coffey. Those are the guys that I'm kind of building around at guard. Any of those guys you disagree with, there's somebody else that's really making it into a lot of your lineups.
I mean, DeJounte Murray has to be up there a little bit here too. I mean, the Spurs are playing for seeding. They need to keep winning basketball games. So I think it makes sense to get to some of these guys. I mean, they're 15-point favorites against Portland, or at least that's what they were last night. I don't know if that's what the number finished at, but they're massive favorites here in this spot. And if they're going to blow them out, it's going to be DeJounte Murray doing a lot of the damage. You should have some Jakob Poeltl exposure too, kind of just sitting there, not much of it. Not that nobody's a priority except for at guard. Luka Doncic is a priority. Getting to some over the field on DeJounte Murray because it's not that hard to do. And then DeAnthony Melton, Terrence Mann. And then did we talk about Killian Hayes yet? Because Detroit has to be talked about as a spot now, especially with some of these OKC guys that I'm getting to. I mean, Killian Hayes is 4,400 and he's a little bit popular at 18%, but I still want to be a little bit over that number. We're talking about a matchup with OKC. I don't know if people are actually going to land on that much of him. I guess for me, it's just looking at what else is there without Corey Joseph, without all these other guys that can be usage hogs, whether it's a Hamidou Diallo who's been there for a while. I mean, if Isaiah Livers ends up starting here, he's a 0.68 fantasy point per minute guy. I mean, all of these guys that aren't Bagley, that aren't Jeremy Grant here, that aren't playing in this game, they're going to give fantasy usage to other guys or more fantasy utility to other guys. So Killian Hayes, 4,400. I also want to be over 18%.
We have a super chat here from Jake Lewis. No question there, but I see a question underneath. So I assume that this is what he wanted to ask. Do you all ever lock a player, regardless of slate size, on FanDuel? Other day, Greg said he rocks 20% randomness on Fantasy Cruncher. I typically play 150 lineup slates. Do I ever? Yes. Do I usually? No. But yeah, there's some days where it's like, hey, DeMarcus Cousins is starting at min price. Yep. Yeah, I want to get to a lot of them. Certain slates in the past where we haven't had the situation this year because Harden's been a little bit on the decline, but think about years in the past where we had, oh, look, James Harden is 10,600 and Chris Paul or Russell Westbrook, whatever star he's playing with at the time, isn't available to play. There's been spots like that where I lock guys in. For today, I think Bobby Portis is a lock play on FanDuel. There are certainly spots to do it, and it's going to be different case by case. Eric, how do you usually handle lock situations? I know you and I have both had individual slates where we said that, hey, I'm going to lock this individual guy.
Yeah, it's funny because most of them that came to my mind immediately were all Boogie Cousins, and you brought him up right off the bat. You know, you get a 3K Boogie starting for Jokic earlier on when he was there at Denver, and I just basically said, I think he starts and we should play 100%. And he started and he put up like 50. And those are the kind of things where it's like no brainer. You look at their fantasy point per minute rate. Some guys, it's like they're going to end up chalky because they have to be on certain slates where there's no value. There's so much value here. Even Bobby Portis, I know that you're talking about him being a lock. I'm not going to call him a pure lock on FanDuel simply because you have Brandon Clark. Nwora is a guy that I want to get exposure to. Robert Covington, it seems expensive. Kyle Anderson could be useful. Isaiah Roby, even on FanDuel at 7K. Weird to say that, but I really like getting to him. There's just so many good guys that I don't even think on a slate like this, I'm going to end up with 100% of a Bobby Portis, who's still my favorite play at the position. But there's just so many other guys that even 35-40 out of Bobby Portis, like a phenomenal smash type spot, that can still not be enough on a slate like this. So it's a real case by case basis.
Scrolling through, hitting on the rest of these super chats here. By the way, it just something that kind of struck my eye. There was some porn bot in here that was just tweeting about like, hey, click on this link to see people take their clothes off. And I just remembered there was this one really random comment once. I was doing the strategy show with Adam and somebody left a super chat and said like, I like Greg, but he talks about penis too much. And I was like, I don't ever remember that being a topic that's come up on the show. But that aside, we've got the porn bots out in full here. And
third leg, Greg. Third leg, Greg.
Which it's not even something propagated by me. That's just
literally
the
that's the kind of lovely co-host that I am, my friend. Just knowing your appendages, knowing your parts, knowing when to say things.
But please stop texting me late. Please stop texting me late at night and asking for pictures. That's over the line. I thought this was a bit for the show. We don't need to bring it after that. Super chat from Uzi Azazov. Super chat from Uzi Azazov. Thoughts on Damian Jones tonight? I find him to be unnecessary.
Dame Jones. Dame Jones? He's fine. Like, if you want to play him in tournaments, again, there are 48 guys like this on this slate. And that sounds like hyperbole, but he grades out phenomenally well. He's sub 10%, but that's because there are other guys who grade out phenomenally well or sub 10%. He takes a center spot on FanDuel from Jokic, so that's a non-starter for me. But on DraftKings, if you want to try to take some shots there, no problem with it. But just know that it's not like you're getting anything special there.
His price has come up a little bit. Just 5,500 I find to be steep for him. Because now we've got these shitty guys from OKC that I've projected similarly to him that are $2,000 cheaper. So that's something I don't remember what my builds were before, but maybe I had 5% Damian Jones before all this news came out. And now there's just other guys I prefer getting to.
Yep.
So not for me. Super chat from D Owens 89. FanDuel GPP triple scrub plus Jokic or AD plus Roby at power forward. Triple scrub plus Jokic.
Triple scrub plus Jokic every time. Can I just ask you this, Greg, to give people an understanding of this slate? How much Jokic and Doncic do you have?
Well, let's see. How many lineups do I have that have both of them in together? All right. So the amount of lineups I have, 30% of my lineups on DraftKings have both Jokic and Luka Doncic in them.
There you go. I have 65% Jokic. I have 52% Doncic. I probably have roughly around the same exact number that you do, around 30% of both. I mean, they're the best two plays on the slate. They're the two guys you should be spending up for constantly. And yes, I get it. Like there's a lot of ways to get different and, everybody else is going to do it, but everybody else is doing it because it's the right thing to do on this slate. If you came to try to get a contrarian take on a spend up, you came to the wrong place. Like LeBron James is as contrarian as you want to get. The boom bust tool clearly shows that, but there's a lot of uncertainty around it. He's not nearly close to anything you should be playing in cash, but in tournaments, yeah, he's about the only pivot you actually have on the top end. DeJounte Murray, I just project out so far away from a guy like Jokic, closer to Doncic, but still, I mean, it's just so easy to get to these two. Play lots of them. That's what it comes down to.
So once again, shout out to Thrive Fantasy, new sponsor of the Live Before Lock show. If you guys are signing up for the first time, use the promo code Awesemo, get up to a $250 bonus on your first deposit. This is prop-based contest, different way to look at DFS, and Eric and I are going to be talking about them coming up in a bit. Their main contest is going to be locking at 7:30 today, so a little more time to get those lineups in there. Next super chat here from Deacon to the Legend. FanDuel low dollar single entry. Would you pay up for Jokic, or would you pay down for some of the other options? Thanks. I don't know what that means.
I don't know, but pay up for Jokic everywhere.
Oh, Jokic. Okay. He spelled it Y-O space K-I-T-C-H. And I just read it. Would you pay up for Jokic? And I didn't put the two and two together. Yeah,
Jokic, like from Rounders. That's the closest thing my brain could come up with on the fly.
Jokic, play him. Next super chat from OG KRGEE. What are the core plays for DKGPP? All right, so we've gotten a lot of super chats. There's been a lot of news. We haven't really been able to flush all this out. Let's do it this way, Eric. I'm going to go through DK and just position by position, say who my most rostered players are. And do you want to do it for FanDuel? I think
sure.
that's
let me pull up the FanDuel stuff. Yeah. Also, FanDuel for their payout structure today, but I'm still a fish and going
to only Ryan, who's like, this is the greatest thing ever because I come in first every night.
Worst take I've ever heard.
Yeah, Ryan's because in our group chat, Eric's complaining like, how come FanDuel has a $250,000 prize with $100,000 to first place? And Ryan's almost agrees like, yeah, you're right. It should be all of the money to first place. Like, why would you even want to come in 11th place?
I don't know, because we're peasants, Ryan. I apologize.
Yeah,
sorry for my tiny little everything.
There are some times where I come in fourth in tournaments. Sometimes Ryan comes in the first three places.
So here's the best way to emphasize this. Last year, I was going back and forth with Adam before a show. And I was just talking about, do I play in this thing? It was like $150 bind on FanDuel. It was $100K to first, $30K to second, $10K to third. $10K to third, and then $4K to fourth. I finished fourth. I barely made money on the tournament. I finished fourth out of like 3,000 entries, only put like 8 entries in, and I barely made money. Barely made money on the slate. Lost money on the 150 that I played. It's like, what are we doing here? You want to be able to be rewarded when you make a great lineup anywhere in the top 10, period, end of story. If you want to change it outside of that, sounds great. But like the sustainability is just a joke.
I wish Brian was watching right now because here's how I think he would want his payout structure to be. Whoever comes in first place gets 100% of the prize pool. Whoever comes in second place has to Venmo another $1,000. Whoever comes in first place, just on principle.
It's an ultimate FU.
So getting to OGK or GEE super chat. What are the core plays for DKGPP? Yeah. Let's go position by position. Just say who our two most rostered players are on both sites, just across the board. For me, first on FanDuel. At point guard, it is Melton and Luka. How about you? FanDuel point guard.
Sorry, I just refreshed to make sure that I have the most updated stuff, and I have my crunch here at the bottom. But it takes with this much stuff, it's taking a second here. All right, Luka Doncic, DeJounte Murray.
Okay, over at shooting guard for me. I also have Melton here because he's shooting guard eligibility, but so I'll say Luke Kennard and Amir Coffey.
Yeah, so again, Murray's over there because he's shooting guard, but Amir Coffey, Luke Kennard on FanDuel.
And then at small forward, there's also Kennard and Coffey of small forward eligibility. My next two guys, Jordan Nwora and LeBron James.
Yeah, Jordan Nwora for me and Kyle Anderson. Ooh. I think he's getting slept on. Kyle Anderson, people don't understand, is a good fantasy point per minute producer. He played point guard back in his UCLA days. He's very good when he gets opportunities, absent some of these other guys on the floor. So I think Kyle Anderson might be a sneaky guy to get to more of.
Our forward for me, Bobby Portis, Brandon Clark. Easy one. Chalk plays. Don't care. I'm jamming chalk today.
Yeah, Clark, Portis. They're the best plays for a reason. Oh, and Roby is going to be my contrarian guy there that I want to throw in.
And then at center for me, Jokic. No surprise.
Yeah, Jokic is not even... So there is a chasm. Karl Anthony Towns, yes, he's underpriced. Yes, he looks decent. I want to get to a little bit of... I mean, I'm playing some Roby, I guess, at the position. I literally have 4 players at center on FanDuel. 4 in 150 lineups. Jokic, Portis, Roby, Karl Anthony Towns.
I don't think that is unreasonable. Let's move on with the next super chats here. We have, damn, I lost a bunch of them here just from, okay, never mind. I'm caught up. All right. So the next super chat here is from Joe Sizabo. I do not believe I pronounced that correctly, but thoughts on David Mitchell tonight. Thanks, Legends. Joe, thank you. I'm not really getting to a lot of Davion Mitchell. I think he's a little bit too popular today, and I just think there's better guys to go to. My lineups are skewed so heavily stars and scrubs.
Yeah, and they should be. So you're doing the right thing. Davion Mitchell, not a priority. Again, there are 48 of these guys that you can play. You keep asking us, like, can we play this guy? You absolutely can. They're all projecting out phenomenally well. Normally, if this was a normal 6, 7, 8 game slate, Davion Mitchell would be one of the highest owned players. This is not a normal 6, 7, 8 game slate. This isn't even a normal 10 game slate. This is like a slate on steroids, really, where you have shorthanded teams on 4 really isolated spots, technically 5 with Detroit as well. But I mean, I don't really care as much there. I just find it so hard to get away from Memphis, Clippers, Milwaukee, OKC, and you should too.
All right, next super chat, Jake Linland, DK 3-man, Hartenstein and Cade, or Lyles and Jaylen Brown? Hartenstein and Cade amongst I don't think any of those guys are like crazy high priority plays for 3-man though. Hartenstein and Cade though.
Yeah, Hartenstein and Cade. I mean, I obviously love both of those guys. I've talked about them at length. I mean, even on FanDuel, where he's power forward only, Hartenstein is a guy that I'm getting to in 15% of lineups. He's what is his ownership right now? 3.6%. Again, these are the kind of stance I'm wanting to take. I'm finding some guys that are lower owned at the position that still grade out well. And I'm just going over the field on them because I think there's some positive leverage to be had. But that's knowing full well that the chalk is an absolute smash. I'm still playing a lot of the chalk pieces, but I'm finding these type of plays to really get overexposed to.
All right. Next super chat from Cheyenne DeWald. Will Ant Edwards ownership be low enough to differentiate a chalky lineup? And also, how do you guys feel about Javon Carter? Do not need a roster Javon Carter today. I find that to be a very unnecessary option. As for Anthony Edwards, let's see. What is the most recent ownership update for Edwards?
He was popular on FanDuel. I mean, we're talking FanDuel.
Edwards, I forget what site Cheyenne plays
6,800 on FanDuel. The guy's like 22% or 21.2 in our last run.
Yeah, and he's over 10% on DK. He's not that different. Okay. So the answer to that question is no. I think if everybody's chalking Eve Edwards in, it's still probably a somewhat popular lineup. Are we all caught up on? I think we finally are caught up on super chats.
This is one of the best slates you could possibly ever have to use the boom bust tool. Like legitimately, we should just be constantly going on. It's getting updated here once again for some of the news. Obviously, Hartenstein's a guy that was having a ton of leverage earlier too. That's one of the reasons that I like him more. But just using the boom bust tool to find these points of leverage, because everybody's a good play, but some guys are just exceptionally better than others, and some are just going to be a little bit over-owned because there's so many good guys. Like I think Nwora is probably the one piece on DK at 3K, as long as he's starting, that it's just like I'm going to have an infinite amount of him, but nobody else do I really think you need to play like 60% of. You can play, Jokic 65 like I am, Doncic 62% in my last run, but for the most part, like all of these value pieces are so phenomenal. You should rotate through a lot of them on DK.
We have a question on our premium Discord chat now from Mr. Moneybags. Portis or Roby? DK GPP single entry. Portis for me. Portis.
Yeah. I mean, Portis is a smash. He's one of those unavoidable pieces of chalk. Like that's where I'm also saying you have to have some context to it. He's probably going to have negative leverage once this boom bust tool gets updated, and I don't care. Like you just play a ton of Portis.
All right. We are finally caught up on questions now. For real this time, unless more of them just came in a second ago. All right, cool. Let's try to find some contrarian plays to give to the people, because I think you and I are both playing fairly chalky today, and I think that's more than reasonable for this kind of slate where there's just so many good-looking value plays. But a couple of questions. First, let's try to look at which players are popular, I think are just too popular. FanDuel or DraftKings? Do you have a site which you prefer to answer this question on?
Not really. Here's the thing. Everybody's a good player. I think Xavier Tillman's a little bit overowned right now. I don't think he's going to start. He's 3,100. And the big problem I have with him is that he fills up a center position. I think he's a guy who still has a 10.2% optimal percentage on DK, but it's so hard for me to want to say, I want to play Xavier Tillman with the unknowns that surround him. As much as like anybody else, because it's not like he's not garnering ownership. So the first guy right off the bat for me, I would just prefer to play about any other chalk piece other than Xavier Tillman.
So for me, just looking at some of the most popular plays right now, and let me refresh to see if I don't think we've gotten an ownership update. Oh, we do. We have one from 2 minutes ago now. I was going to say we haven't had one in a little bit. Lindy Waters is crazy popular today. I mean, I get it because there's all of the playing time in the world available for OKC, but like, why is everybody landing on Lindy Waters of all the players? Like, I don't, Lindy Waters is nearly 30% owned. Do you have anywhere?
That's crazy.
I don't have anywhere near that on DraftKings. He's in my player pool. I assume Lindy Waters is a guy who really knows for sure. That could be a guy or a girl name.
He's Lindy Waters the third. I mean, Lindy 4. How about that?
Yeah. Well, do you even think there's a first two Lindy Waterses?
Yeah, I have Lindy Walters. I don't know. He sounds like a Brit or something. I don't know.
Yeah. So I think Lindy Waters is going over-owned on DK. Roby maybe a little bit, but I like Roby. I'm getting to a good amount of Roby. Tillman isn't 18% for Tillman. I think that's reasonable.
Are you getting timed out like me? Are we on Fantasy Cruncher?
Yeah.
All right. I'm just gonna have to upload something else. And then again, I didn't really like any of the value in the first couple of games. So if you're 5 minutes left, just make sure that you have a group of lineups. If you're gonna do anything right now, just fade the first couple of games if it doesn't get back up here. That's the best advice I have for you. We're all waiting for 8 p.m. Eastern time. As long as you have it by then, you're gonna be okay. Obviously, I think that could.
Well, no, I would not. Wait. I have to correct you.
What?
Play Luka. Luka's in one of the
play all the Luka. Sorry. Play all the Luka.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. Sorry. Thank you. I'm just kind of going through and making sure that I have everything in its right place for myself before we run into any kind of an issue here. All right. I'm going to be okay. Hopefully you guys are as well. Sorry. Again, we have nothing to do with that. If it's going to time out, we're just trying to do the best we can to give you the analysis with what we have in front of you. Fantasy Cruncher add-on. Yeah. It's a bummer if it's timing out for you, just like it is for me. But try to do what you can with your entries right now. And I think the best thing you can do at this moment is just play a bunch of Luka, fade the rest.
The random comments sometimes that catch my eye in YouTube chat that just made me laugh. Or Rockety, but just asking, why is there always so much Lindy Waters hate? I'm almost positive this is the first time I brought up Lindy Waters on a show.
Yeah,
almost positive.
Yeah, I played a lot in that Portland game. It's about the only time I can remember. That was Showdown primarily. It's like, I don't know. He's just a dude who exists in the world. And so, yeah, it's nothing crazy.
Next super chat here from Shane Daly. Just a thank you. Thanks for all the content, guys. That's all. Thank you, Shane. We appreciate you. He's been one of the more regular people in our YouTube chat over the course of the entire season. Then he has a follow-up, the triple Lindy ? Which we just talked about Lindy Waters. If you have him in a cash game lineup, that's fine. And once again, I have him in my tournament player pool. I just don't have 30% of him. I'm underweight to that number. I have him around 10%. So I just think where he's getting owned right now is a little bit too much.
Agreed.
Super chat from Teddy Wayman. Thanks for all the content, guys. We appreciate you. Oh, super chat here. Weatherman7. DK 777 contest. My lineup is already Chalk City. Last two, Portis and Josh Christopher, or KPJ and Ibaka. That is Portis and Christopher for me.
Portis and Christopher, but Christopher more by default. So there you go.
Super chat from A. Nate Robinson. different Nate Robinson. I can tell by his profile picture, this is not the dunk contest champion. Porzingis and Dinwiddie revenge spots. No, nothing else. Just mentioned Porzingis.
Like Porzingis, I like just as a tournament dart. But again, he goes in the pool of 48 guys. I keep saying 48 as if there's an exact number, but that's just the number I've come up with. There's 48 exceptional tournament plays like Porzingis all over the board on the top end, mid-range, bottom end. But like, he's just another dude that you can choose to go overweight. I'm just choosing to go a little bit cheaper with some of them. I think he's the guy that I prefer. I have no Dinwiddie interest.
Yeah, Dinwiddie. I can't see my player pool right now, but I'm pretty sure I had 0% Dinwiddie. Let's see. I'll try refreshing to see if I can get in. Last I remembered, I didn't have any Dinwiddie. I had a small amount of Porzingis. People asking about LeBron. I think we could do an injury roundup right now, and that'll bring us into lock. Guys, don't go anywhere. Also, do us a favor. Like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. I didn't really hawk for likes and subs that much because it was a never-ending flow of news, and we got a lot of questions. You guys really supported big today, and we appreciate you for that. Players that are currently listed as questionable heading into lock. LeBron James, officially questionable. Anthony Davis is officially questionable. Those are really the two big ones. We also got guys like JaMychal Green, Malik Beasley. They don't matter, but just to reiterate what Eric and I both said at the top of the show, my expectation is that LeBron and Anthony Davis both play. We got really weird injury designations on them. Well, while they're both officially listed as questionable, it is Anthony Davis is questionable but plans to play. LeBron James is questionable and hopes to play. Next, we'll find out somebody else like Russell Westbrook, like fingers crossed that'll play or something weird. Because I
mean, if you're the Lakers, aren't you secretly hoping you get LeBron and AD back, and then you can go Russell Westbrook rest ruled out?
Yeah, but not secretly.
Just outwardly say we want anybody else. DJ Augustine starting lineup.
DJ Augustine is absolute garbage also, though.
Not good, but he's better than Russell Westbrook for a team.
Yeah, I don't think that's true.
Yeah, it's probably not.
You
know what I mean.
I'll have to look. Yeah, I mean, like really anything over Westbrook. You just need somebody who's not going to take shots for the most part and miss a lot of them and maybe be somewhat competent on defense. But yeah, it's been what are DJ Augustine's numbers?
No, DJ Augustine is not starting Roski. I was just saying hypothetically that it's like a 1v1 where you get LeBron and AD back, just take Russell Westbrook off the floor because he's not a net positive for this basketball team. By any metric, he is bad.
Yeah. I mean, so is DJ Augustine. DJ Augustine, who's on the court his shooting numbers are crazy this year, but yeah, I guess maybe they'll be better with DJ Augustine just because of the floor spacing. Very possible. All right, let's talk about our new sponsor, Thrive. Once again, guys, if you're signing up for the first time, if you use the promo code Awesemo, get up to a $250 bonus on your first deposit. Also, they have a contest that they've launched just for us today, just for our little circle here, our little gang. It is a contest you could find in the lobby. Download the app, Thrive Fantasy, and there's a code to get in. The code is Awesemo, all lowercase letters. $500 free roll. You don't have to make a deposit. All you have to do is find that contest in the lobby. It's going to say the contest is locked. I'm doing it right now. Then it says, please enter a password to enter this contest. And you type in Awesemo, all lowercase letters. And that is AWESEMO. If you guys weren't aware how to spell Awesemo. So while I pull that up, we also got a question in our premium Discord channel from Ghetto Farmer Boy. Was this Tyler? This seems like a Tyler. It seems like a Tyler burner.
Coming up, almost confused. My mama kissing a girl. Confusion occurs coming up in a cold world. Daddy ain't around, probably out committing felonies. And favorite apps you say, check on my melody. I want to live good. So shit, I sell dope for a 4-finger ring with one of the gold rope stand. It told me if I pass, I get a sheepskin coat of mule few packs to get the hat. Now that'd be dope tossed and turned in my sleep at night. Woke up the next morning, brother stole my bike every day. Same shit ain't nothing good. In the hood, I'd run away from this bitch and never come back if I could. Hated or love it, the underdogs on top, and I'm gonna shine on me until my heart stops. Go ahead, envy me. I'm Raps MVP, and I ain't going nowhere, so you can get to know me.
All right. So that aside, very well done. That was impressive.
Thank you.
That was impressive. I'll give you some props for that. Grading it on a curve, of course. Not like
I was gonna say on the white boy curve because you're not very good.
Yeah,
but
grading it on a curve. The other thing too that made me think about. So the final rap battle in 8 Mile, when Eminem, first of all, Anthony Mackie, who plays the now Captain America in the Marvel universe, who's rapping in, his disses are all like, he went to private school. His parents still have a happy marriage. It's like, and then the crowd's going nuts. Like, these aren't that great of digs on somebody, but the crowd was totally eating it up when he did it. But anyway, it's for whatever reason, I think about that like once a week, that rap battle. We did get a couple more super chats to answer. Also, as we're going to be pulling up Thrive Fans, so you guys could use OddsShopper over at Awesemo.com. Pretty good tool. Just you could look on the individual player cards and compare that to some of these numbers they have over at Thrive. One thing that's helpful about Thrive also is they don't have props listed for like 8,000 players. They just have them for some of the players that are the most important players on the individual slate. So you could go look up in the contest, for instance, as I drop my phone, and you could see like Tyrese Halliburton is one of the guys listed. So you just go to OddsShopper, you could click on Tyrese Halliburton, and you can compare our points projection to where Tyrese Halliburton is over on Thrive. Let me hit on these super chats here that we have right now. By the way, very controversial. Your flow and rhyming right there. Some people loved it. Some people hated it.
Sometimes it may be good. Sometimes it may be shit.
Yeah, for me.
No, Jordan, he didn't have it on.
All right,
sorry,
whatever.
Tyler, failure.
Yeah,
let's catch
didn't deserve it.
So Tyler didn't like it. All right.
No. The rap was good. That's why I didn't boo you. It was adequate at best. Once again, on a bell curve. On a bell curve.
I'm wearing this bright of a blue shirt. It can't get that many props. Like
that's not blue.
It's like a bluish green.
Man,
Tyler,
I'm
is that blue?
colorblind and I know that's not blue.
Yeah.
Okay. Whatever it is.
Super chat from Darren Unger, which super chats his super chat that certainly came up in blue. FanDuel, Noora and Clark, or Coffee and Tillman.
Ooh. Tillman is not in my favorite.
That is
place
Noora and Clark.
Noora and Clark, not close.
Oh, and by the way, I totally forgot. We actually had a question to answer that we missed, that we sketched over. So Ghetto Farmer Boy asked us a question that we never answered, which is
because then I went nuts.
Yeah, because I said we have a question from Ghetto Farmer Boy, and then you rapped for 3 minutes.
I did.
Ghetto Farmer Boy asked, "What is your pivot strategy if LeBron is ruled out?" I think LeBron's playing. I just don't think he's getting ruled out.
I think he's playing. He's the most positively leveraged player to get to in the boom bust tool. I think you should be over the field on him, but it's also not that hard to get over the field on him.
We have a super chat here from Derek Stansel. Greg, who are your Cy Young picks for the upcoming season? So after the DeGrom news came out, I went right back to my guy. I bet Corbin Burns at 11-1. And I don't know exactly what the numbers are now, if they've updated. I know DK, at least at the time that we'd started the show, have not updated a single betting line for the DeGrom news, which just came out almost 24 hours ago now. So just under, like, for me, Braves to win the division at plus 140, Mets under 90.5 wins, Mets plus 260 to miss the playoffs, Phillies even money to make the playoffs. I think there's a lot of ways to take advantage of them just not updating those lines right now. As for Cy Young picks, I don't have one in the AL, but for the NL, I like betting Corbin Burns at 11-1 if that is still available.
Yeah, I like Dylan Cease for what it's worth in the AL. I mean, 10.6 strikeouts per 9. Just stay healthy for a year, young man, and you're going to be just fine. He's on a White Sox team that I think is very, very potent. They get the Royals. They get my Minnesota Twins, which aside from Correa, I just don't really know that lineup's that strong top to bottom. Kansas City should be decent. They've got some young prospects that are all right, but my God, I just absolutely think that Dylan Cease is going to mow down humans this year.
If you guys would like to ever hear Eric Rapp again, hit the like button. If you guys would never like to hear Eric Rapp again, also hit the like button. At the end of the day, we're going to tally up the votes and see where you guys all stand. Super chat from Olrat14. If playing Clark and Tillman, who to switch to? DK single entry. It's Tillman's min price and Clark is 4,400. It's not
all the games are starting at 8 p.m. Eastern time. I've said that a number of times. We're going to have maximum swappability. I'm just going to be recrunching. There's going to be guys that might be surprising us in the starting lineup. You could get a John Conchar, however you want to say his name. You could get him starting out of the middle of nowhere. Maybe Kyle Anderson isn't in there, but I assume he is. I mean, there's just some wonky things that could happen. Sacramento has been starting a million different things. What happened?
Somebody called you 10 Cent in the YouTube channel.
That was, I think I saw Tyler say that he's Dime Lindquist. I think that, 10 Cent. That's pretty good. That's good.
Super chat from Justin Alperto. Cade and HB, I assume that's Harrison Barnes. So Cade and Harrison Barnes or Coffee and JT on Yahoo. Who's JT? I feel like I'm blanking
Justin
on something.
Thomas.
Who's JT?
Whenever you say JT, I'm going to think Justin Thomas.
Yeah, I'm trying to think who's Jason Tatum, I guess. Right?
Oh, yeah.
That makes sense.
He's fine, but like, I don't really have a ton of interest going there.
He's cheap on Yahoo today, though.
Oh, Tatum is? Okay. Well,
Yeah,
he's 10-3, DK, FanDuel. Was kind of a guy that was sneaking into some lineups for me there, 9,400, but a little bit higher optimal appearance rate. But his ownership's just so much higher. On Yahoo, where is Tatum? I'm looking at him now. He's all right. $43 we're looking at. I still would just prefer getting Jokic, Doncic, and trying to move on and have those be my primary spend ups. But if you wanted to get different away from one of those two, Tatum's an all right way to do it. Just not going to be like a priority for me.
Yeah. So for me, it's I don't like Harrison Barnes today though.
Yeah, I hate
Coffee and Tatum pretty easy.
Okay. Yeah. I don't
by the way,
Harrison Barnes at all.
I believe we have Fantasy Cruncher back.
Dun, da, dun, da, 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 da.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we
buddy.
did.
All right.
Let's go.
Everybody,
All right,
Fantasy
swap
Cruncher's
time.
back up. Let's rerun
Beautiful.
our lineups, get them uploaded.
Yep.
And then we'll be talking about some Thrive Fantasy. Check out Odd Shopper too, guys. It's going to be a really useful resource when it comes to filling out some of these prop. I don't know exactly what to call it. Prop lineups, I guess we'll call them over at Thrive Fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
Really useful using Odd Shopper and just identifying the best individual players. Have you looked at the contest they have for us tonight?
Yeah, so I played golf yesterday because I wanted to get a sense for the site. I deposited, used promo code Awesemo. I got $250 extra on top. I mean, what a great deal to kind of get thrown there. Anytime you try out a new site, make sure you take advantage of those promo codes. I'm doing the same thing, but I played the golf product yesterday, got a feel for it. You play 5 out of the 10 golfers that they have listed for that. It was really, really fun. I'm looking forward to playing the Masters for Thursday. But one thing that I definitely learned is that you're going to be enticed to go after some of the points. You're going to be enticed to go after some of them. But there's kind of a break-even type value you're looking at for a number of these spots. And like for the most part, take some of the freebies where you can get them and mix in some of the contrarian pieces. I think I tried to go really, really heavy, kind of went for both approaches. I played a pretty conservative lineup that I thought was pretty easy to get across the finish line. Played a lot of really aggressive prop lineups. You need to find kind of the right mixture for the two. I think in NBA, where we just have more to choose from, we have Odd Shopper at our disposal. So I went to Odd Shopper, started putting together which plays I thought really stood out of this grouping. And then also just using some logic in terms of, well, okay, if I'm going to try to get different, where are the best places to go? Probably not over on 2.5 blocks for an Al Horford, even against this Indiana front court. So I kind of shied away from a prop like that. If you feel advantageous to go for 130 points, that's something you can do. But for me, I landed on a lot of these 100-point props like Davion Mitchell. I think 22.5 points plus rebounds is a little bit low. As much as I'm looking at getting away from a lot of the chalky Davion Mitchell, or he's not really that chalky. Nobody's that chalky on this slate aside from the studs, but looking at the over for Davion Mitchell is a good way to get exposure to him. There's only 20 players that are listed here for it. So it's not like I'm making some kind of a crazy stand that goes against my DFS exposure. So over 100 points was like a first guy in for me there.
And then, they have a couple. So Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton are listed here. Do you know what are the rules for a player who is not in?
They have to be in. So,
Okay.
So these two guys are off the board here. Zubac's under 1.5. We just heard that he's going to be on a minutes limit.
Yeah.
I'm switching that as we go on my lineup here. Under 105. That's an absolute smash now too.
Totally agree. So let's try to find, just looking at some of the players here from when this contest comes out, the players that are out for today or players who have any kind of news on. Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton, both out. Don't take any props for them. Ivica Zubac, this looks like a strong under, getting 105 points. So the other thing also how the point system works, in general, they're going to be 100 on both sides, but they're going to be some where it's like, hey, 70 for the over, 130 for the under, depending on what they expect to be the most likely. So not only for Zubac, the blocks and steals, does the under make sense considering the news we got that he's going to be playing limited minutes, but the under is actually worth more points than the over. So that's one of the ones I like the most right here is Zubac under for 105 points. Paul George, he is out tonight. Steven Adams, he is not playing today. And let's see, that covers all of the news. So don't play those guys. And now we could go in trying to find some of our individual ones. So,
so what happens at the end, Greg, too, just because from the golf one, as you're building your lineup here, as we're all building our lineups over here, they give you 2 emergency props at the very end. And in the event that somebody gets ruled out like this, you get an emergency prop in the backup spot. So that's what it'll default to if you pick players that don't end up appearing.
So I have to check. Apparently, there's some really weird rotations going on to open the game. Not surprising at this point in the season.
Brezdikas.
Yeah. Wagner came out at the first whistle. So I assume he's just not playing today. It's like a pseudo rest game. It's probably something to just get him some sort of obligation or whatever. But yeah, it's unless he got hurt in those 20 seconds, because I haven't seen anything about him getting hurt online. I don't have the game on.
Don't they have to fine Orlando at a certain point? Like some of their rotation. I mean, did you see who closed the game for them the other night?
Oh, apparently Franz got hurt. People are saying in chat, so that's different.
Well, there you go. That's different.
Yeah, he's allowed to get hurt. I just assume it was something dumb where they were tanking.
But back to what I was saying, did you see who Orlando closed with the other night?
I'm sure it was guys I've never heard of.
Oh, it is all kinds of spectacular. I need to find this while we're talking about it. Game flow against Cleveland. 107-101. They were in jeopardy of winning that game. So who closed? Ignas Brezdikas, Mo Wagner, Chuma Okeke, Jeff Doughton, and Admiral Schofield. That was the closing lineup.
Do you know why they call him Admiral Schofield?
Why?
Because he commands the tank. So Admiral Schofield, they come in and they salute to him. Admiral Schofield, tank commander, is taking over Campaign, who used to be the old tank commander. We salute your Admiral Schofield. You are leading us right to the bottom. Admiral Schofield.
Send him into Ukraine. He'll end that war in 5 seconds.
Nah, I think he only fights on losing sides.
Oh, that's what it is. We don't want that. Do not send him to Ukraine. The opposite of what I said.
He does nothing but lose. Send him
to Russia. There you go.
I was going to say the Lakers, but let's see. I'm looking through these. So what are some of the other ones that really stand out to you right now? And I'm going to pull up Odd Shopper right now too, and just kind of compare some of our player projections.
Yeah. So, I mean, Jonas Valanciunas is kind of interesting. Have you seen the minute spike he's had? They've needed to win some of these games. I didn't talk about him on the onset. I have a little bit of him over on DK. Nothing's like 4%. So don't get me crazy, but I was actively going through being like, who are the guys that I'm just going to be removing from my pool? And I kept Jonas Valanciunas in. Otherwise, you end up with like 120 players or something ridiculous on a slate like this. But he's played 37 and 35 minutes with Hernan Gomez just falling completely out of the rotation. I love the over on 10.5 rebounds for him in this spot.
10.5. I'm scrolling. Was he more towards the bottom?
He's at the very bottom there. Yes.
Oh, there it is. Okay. Yeah, I had to scroll a little bit to find him. Valanciunas. I think that's a pretty fair number. With that said, though, there is just upside that the Pelicans guys just go out and play Valanciunas like 36 minutes. Could get like 40 from Ingram, 40 from McCollum. So I get behind that. I think the number is about fair, but I might not be giving Valanciunas enough minutes.
Well, also keep in mind that we don't have the entire board to work with like we do when we're picking out props to bet. We have to pick out where our spots are that we feel like we have the most confidence amongst these 20 props. 3 of them are kind of removed instantly with Holiday, Middleton, and Paul George off the board. So you're basically working with 17 players. And I feel the most confident amongst those 17 that the over for Valanciunas, you're getting a little bit lower on the 95 points, but I feel like that's a more confident play for me with his minute spike.
Yep, I could get behind that one. Let's see. So of the games that lock at 7:30, we've got the Pacers Celtics game. Tyrese Halliburton, 15.5 points over under. Jaylen Brown, 6.5 rebounds over under. Jason Tatum, 4.5 assists over under. What's tricky for me about this game is I know we try not to predict blowouts too much, but this spread is so wide for this game. And when it comes to props and trying to figure which sides I want to be on, when we're introducing, because it's different with DFS because we're trying to find upside, particularly in tournaments. So that's one of the other reasons that blowouts don't matter as much. We're just looking at something 50-50, yes or no, will or will it not happen. I prefer to stay away from potential blowouts. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think there's just a lot of uncertainty. Think about this too. We've got some ownership to consider over on Thrive. Like there's going to be certain props that people are going to play more. So do we just adjust it based on the way that we perceive the play to be best? But there's an ownership number that comes in. That's what there was on the golf. So you'll see how many people took the side, one or the other. And obviously there's plays that won't get to a full, like the full allotment of like 100% because not everybody's clicked on every single play or on every single card. So there's going to be guys that just have 0% on either side of it. But you always got to keep that kind of in mind as well. We're not just trying to find winners, but trying to find winners that are lower owned. I think that there's a little bit of game theory that needs to be taken into account as well.
Is there anything to be said for trying to correlate your players together, almost the way you would with a same game parlay, and maybe playing the Celtics Pacers game for a blowout? Because I think all those numbers are pretty fair. 4.5 assists Tatum, 6.5 rebounds Brown, 15.5 points for Halliburton. Maybe taking unders on all three of them and just saying like, hey, if it's a blowout, all three of them are fairly likely to hit.
Yeah, I think there is. But then that's also where the fun part about Thrive, I think, is trying to figure out whether or not correlating them makes sense. Having Jaylen Brown getting the over on 110 and the under on Jason Tatum assists 120, 230 is going to be a gigantic total to get, as opposed to, when I'm looking at some of these other plays, we have 85 for Ayton on the under of 12.5 rebounds. We have 95 for Adams. I mean, there's going to be some of these that matter. Now, when you're only picking 10, and you think about each one being 100 points, you're looking for 1,000 points. And the difference is going to be, pretty subtle between getting first for that $1,000 and not. I don't mind completely correlating it because, you're assuming that's going to work out enough times. And there's only 220 entries in the contest. In the free roll, a little bit more so. So you can correlate it. There's probably not going to be a quote unquote perfect lineup. I find that difficult where, you'd have to take Al Horford over 130, Harrison Barnes under 130 for steals. Although I think that's a decent enough number. I know he's been playing a lot of minutes, and you hate that it's against a turnover-prone Houston, but what is Harrison Barnes on Odd Shopper today?
We're also looking at steals. So let's see what we have for steals. Also, now as I'm kind of going through this, though, it's a little unavoidable. We kind of have to get to some Boston, Indiana guys just because – the one that I feel best about is that Al Horford under 2.5 blocks. Same. But the other thing too is, with the amount of players that have gotten ruled out here, it's not like we have that many other guys to go to. So we're probably going to be forced to get to, like Tatum or Brown or something.
Mm-hmm. And the Horford one pays out 70 points as opposed to 100 points for the other two. Yeah. So you might be more inclined to just try to be on the right side of the coin flip.
Well, I don't think 2.5 blocks is a coin flip, though.
No. I'm talking about Tatum and Brown.
Oh, gotcha.
Saying you're more inclined to try to go for those as opposed to take the 70-point freebie because 70 is less than 80 is less than 90 is less than 110 is less than 120.
Wait. Explain this to me again.
Yeah, I know.
One more time.
It's hard to believe, but 70 is less than 80. Yeah. It's also less than 90. It's also less than 110. And less than 120.
This guy here, he might not know his colors, but he knows his numbers. Everybody had their strengths and weaknesses in first grade.
Coming up, I was confused. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, not again.
Right back into it.
Yeah, it's gonna be. I'm gonna be looking at the analytics for the show afterwards, and I'll be able to identify when Eric started rapping because it'll be viewership. I'll be like, and I'll be like, oh look, that's when Eric started rapping.
Thanks. So people are freaking out about Luka. It's fine. There's 6 minutes into this game. Having it be competitive is good. We like that. Chill out. I don't like that Satoransky has 2, 4, and 2. Like, what are we doing here, Satoransky? What is happening to this assist rate? He's playing like mid-20s minutes a night and just putting up like 13 assists, 14 assists. This is stupid.
Yeah. And this is also a tough matchup against the Mavericks. Just point guard, Satoransky.
Point guard.
Yeah.
Oh, lordy.
European Chris Paul.
Yeah.
All right. So some of the ones that stand out to me the most, this number looks really high for CJ McCollum. 36.5 points plus rebounds plus assists. Do you not find that to be a really high number now that Brandon Ingram's back and playing normal minutes?
Say that again.
36.5 points plus rebounds plus assists.
It's a lot. It's a lot. But again, this is going to be a game where it's all hands on deck for both teams. I don't mind hitting the under on it. It seems like a lot, but I mean, he is a phenomenal addition. He's really fit in well. The assists have really been bolstered up as well, but that definitely takes away. Whenever you look at points plus rebounds plus assists, keep in mind, most of what you need out of almost everybody in that category is points. And the usage is definitely going to be down with a larger sample size as he plays alongside Ingram more. Obviously, we have more time with him without Ingram now. But I'm looking at this as just something where if you project him for around 23, 24 points, I mean, is he going to get to 12 assists very often? He's not a great rebounder. I'm okay taking the under there and trying to taking an over on Valanciunas and an under on McCollum. I think that can still work out nicely, and not everybody feels willing to do that.
By the way, guys, go ahead. If you've not entered the free roll over at Thrive, which I know most of you haven't, because only 45 people have entered it right now. It's just free money that you could have. Go download the Thrive app, find that contest that says Awesemo NBA Friday free roll. You go enter it. It's going to ask you for a passcode, and you enter Awesemo, all lowercase letters. That will grant you entry to the tournament. You're going to get free money. Nobody's entered this so far. Well, 45 people, not very much. Go enter it. Also, if you're signing up at Thrive for the first time, use the promo code Awesemo. Get up to $250 on your first deposit as a bonus. All right. Are there any contrarian picks you're seeing that you like in our free roll?
I was just kind of mulling over. I mean, is DeAndre Ayton taking the over on 12.5 rebounds going to be something that's contrarian? Because I feel like, because if I'm looking to try to get the most points possible, and you talk about something being a fair line, well, if something's going to be a fair line, don't I just always want to go to the more profitable side of it? DeAndre Ayton, we have for 10.8. Now, that is not going to be like a popular one. I definitely like the under, but in terms of trying to get different, against this Memphis front court that's going to be Xavier Tillman and Brandon Clark, if you told me Ayton put up 20 and 15, I wouldn't be that surprised.
Got an over-under for you. This comes from Tom, founder of MySpace, as per usual, hanging out in the YouTube chat, trying to get some NBA content before he goes back and lives his life and updates his MySpace page. Luka over under 25 fantasy points today.
I mean, come on. Like, they're just being dramatic. You're fine. You're fine. I know.
Eric, you're not allowed to.
I'm
Eric,
the only person
not allowed to call people dramatic. You of all people,
he's being
cannot
dramatic.
call people dramatic.
He's being dramatic. Don't just chill out. We're fine.
Over. Super chat from Ryan Nelson 02. Ice Trey against the tough Heat in the first round. Who do you think is going to make the playoffs in the Eastern Conference out of the play-in game?
Ooh, I like that question. Well, I mean, it's loaded from what I looked at the other day. 7 through 10 is just absolutely loaded. I mean, let me just pull up the.
We pretty much know who the teams are.
Yeah, Cleveland, Brooklyn. I'm just waiting for it to come up. Charlotte and Atlanta. There you go. Cleveland is in definite trouble. If you're not going to have Evan Mobley, if you're not going to have. They've just been bit by the injury bug so hard. Like, you're going to get a malfunct, probably Mobley, that might be gimpy out there. You're going to get Jared Allen back. Maybe I doubt it. I think Cleveland's in a lot of trouble. Even a road game here for Brooklyn. They're 2 games back. I would be all right with Brooklyn straight up in that one. I mean, all 3 of these teams, there's a lot of shuffling that could happen 8 through 10, but I think Brooklyn playing Cleveland in Cleveland would still get through there. Looking at Charlotte and Atlanta,
we also don't know if that's going to be where they are.
Exactly. Well, that's what I'm saying is that that's what I just said is that Brooklyn, I'm just assuming that when you have Kyrie Irving now back for 100% of games, then Kevin Durant and playing competitive against Milwaukee, that looking at the rest of their schedule, they should be able to handle business and move up to, no worse than 8 and just sit at that 8 spot. But if you told me that Cleveland and Brooklyn played, I'm definitely going to take Brooklyn in that one. I bet it would be a pretty surprising spread that you're looking at in that one. Kevin Love they would actually have to play Kevin Love minutes. So congratulations on that. Charlotte and Atlanta. I mean, I feel like Atlanta's just the better basketball team between the two. They have the more proven playoff player, I suppose, in Trae Young. John Collins, I don't know how close he's actually to getting back in this spot. That would be a fun competitive one, but I don't think there's any question about it. I mean, Brooklyn's the best of those 4 by a landslide.
Yeah, so I think they're the best, but there's still a lot of variability there.
Mm-hmm.
Because somebody asked me the other day, what are the Nets' odds of missing the playoffs? I said probably like 20%. Fair number.
That's fair, 20%.
Because if you just think of it this way, if they end up, because there's only a few games left. You just lose a couple games here and there, and all of a sudden and don't forget, I don't know if Durant's healthy right now. He hurt his ankle at the end of last game. Yeah, could be a problem.
Yeah, that would be if we heard that. I mean, that's
no, but I think he's going to play through it. I don't know if he's going to be 100% though.
Okay.
Luka's in foul trouble, by the way, now too. Any more panic?
We're fine.
No panic?
None. I don't panic. I'm calm.
I don't know if that's true, by the way. Oh, I don't know. Everybody's actually saying,
yo, Eric, Luka with 2 fouls. Oh my God. We'll see at the top of the leaderboard tonight.
Let's go Jokic, right?
We'll get some
Jokic lineups. So get some Jokic lineups.
Something percent. Doncic rebound. Doncic layup. I just wanted to, the FU Gumby from what is that? The Madden, the most hardest hitting safety in the league.
Oh wait, no, that's
the
Brian Dawkins.
Yes.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. Every once in a while, I'm hit with it. Franz Wagner out for the rest of the game.
Well, there you go. Eric looks worried. I'm not worried. Luke has 1.2 FD. I'm fine. Yeah. Why'd you say to play Luka? Oh my God, he's terrible. The worst. Thank you, Terry McBride. He is just terrible.
Final thing, and then we'll close. Also, guys, download the Thrive app. You can play our free roll for free. I know it's a little late to join it right now because it's locking at the moment, but they got free contests. Use that promo code Awesemo if you guys are trying to get in. The password to get into the free roll, Awesemo, all lowercase letters. So let's just finish trying to figure out
Luka bucket.
Let's say that the Nets end up falling to the 10 seed. They have to play a road game against the Hawks, and they have to win that and then play another road game against the loser of Cavs Hornets. I think realistically, you're looking like 50-50 for them to make the playoffs at that point.
Wait, Brooklyn?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you had to win back-to-back games, that's probably appropriate.
If they have to win back-to-back games on the road, one against the Hawks, one against the loser of Cavs Hornets.
Yeah, that's true.
It's dicey. They shouldn't be the favorites to win the Eastern Conference right now. It's ridiculous.
No, that's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. It was the same thing about the Lakers though last year when we bet the Suns hard. You remember that? We went on a just Suns betting spree at the end of last year because it's like the Lakers are in the play-in game. They're playing the Suns and they look terrible. It was absurd.
It's going to bring us to lock right here.
Oh yeah. This was fun, y'all.
Long story short, keep an eye on the Nets. I'm kind of interested to see what by the way, they don't even have overwhelming odds to make the playoffs at sportsbooks right now. It's like they're like plus 300 to miss. It's live. Curious to see what happens there. Guys, thank you very much for watching. On the way out, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Good luck tonight. We'll see you guys over the weekend.